Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has filed articles of impeachment against Supreme Court Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, as she has promised to do. Now, hold on. It's not because of their rulings. She's saying it's over misconduct. Sure. We're going to talk about that. It's a big story. But then we also have Rep. Anna Paulina Luna's bill to hold Merrick Garland in contempt failing as several Republicans defected to join Democrats in, for some reason, protecting Joe Biden. I am very clearly not happy about this if you watched my earlier morning segments. And then we have some funny news and some serious news. Ben Shapiro testifying before Congress. Some funny quips that we'll highlight. But serious news, advertising networks, major media buyers were trying to collude to shut down conservative channels like the Daily Wire, citing the Breitbart model. They even targeted Joe Rogan. So we're going to talk about all of that, my friends. But before we get started, head over to vaultdrinks.com/TimPool. I got to tell you, we actually ran out of this stuff. They sent us some, and it's delicious. And we drank it all. It's sugar-free, no caffeine, ketone-based energy drink. Vault says it's the first ever Go BHB ketone high-octane brain fuel that supercharges your mind and body, containing no sugar, no caffeine, nothing artificial. In today's market, especially for kids, all these drinks have sugar or caffeine or something artificial or all of the above. Vault defies all of that. It's the healthiest drink ever made, they say. Wow. 100% natural. And I'll point this out, too. Some of these energy drinks that I'm not going to name, it's not even an energy drink. It's just nasty tasting soda they call energy. I'm not a fan. What is BHB, you might ask? It's the body and brain's preferred fuel. You probably don't know this, but when you are being born in your mom's belly, the most important time in your life, when all your major organs are being developed, your heart, your brain, etc., ketones were a part of that. And so that's what Vault is saying. They say that ketones are your body's preferred fuel. So head over to vaultdrinks.com/TimPool. And you'll get 10% off. We also have this QR code you can scan right now. You guys know I did the ketosis for a while, but I always recommend you talk to a doctor about, what's right for you and all that stuff. But I will say I'm not a big fan of the sugary garbage drinks. And I will stress, too, you may have noticed other commercials where the big brands are starting to advertise that they, too, are pulling sugar from their drinks. So check out vaultdrinks.com/TimPool. And I will just stress this stuff. It tastes really good. So we're big fans. Shout out to Vault. Again, vaultdrinks.com/TimPool. And head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly. We're going to have an awesome members-only uncensored call-in show coming up for you at about 10 p.m. That's where you as members can submit questions and actually join the show and talk to us and our guests. It'll be a lot of fun. But also, click that banner. We've got the RNC Milwaukee 2024 show, July 18th. Mike Lindell, Luke Rutkowski, Hannah Claire Brimelow, Libby Emmons. We're going to be there. You're going to be there. You're going to be hanging out with us in the audience. We're going to do live Q&A. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to enjoy this trip up to Milwaukee. I don't know how many tickets are left, but go to timcast.com. Pick up your tickets and also become a member. Don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Joe Kent.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me.
How's it going?
Doing great, man. Appreciate me having me back on.
Yeah. Who are you? What do you do?
So Joe Kent, running for Congress in Washington's 3rd District, retired Green Beret, did a little bit over 20 years in the military. Got a new book out. It's about my late wife who was killed fighting ISIS in Syria. The book's called Send Me. It's available everywhere you can buy books.
Right on. Well, thank you for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Ian's here.
Hi, everyone. Hey, Tim. Good to see you guys. Hello, Hannah Claire. And Joe as well. Always good to see you, man. I'm back. I play music. I'm an actor. I do a lot of stuff. Happy to be here.
It's fun to have you both here. I'm glad you could join us, Joe. I'm Hannah Claire Brimelow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com, Scanner News. Let's get started.
Real quick, before we do, I must stress, YouTube's back end is down, and tons of people are freaking out. But I managed to duct tape a way to get the stream going anyway. And so hopefully...
Is that going to affect anything?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, so YouTube blocked us from streaming 1 minute ago. Or, okay, so 5 minutes ago, before we got started. And I tried inspecting to remove the Java that was blocking the, I seem to have figured it out.
Oh, nice.
But everyone's tweeting like, YouTube's down. We can't get in the back end. I can't access any of our videos or analytics or anything. It's all busted. But we're live, so let's talk about the news. We got this story from the Post-Millennial. Breaking, AOC files articles of impeachment against Supreme Court Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. AOC claimed that Thomas and Alito refused to recuse themselves from cases where they had a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party. The important thing to stress here is that this is completely pointless. And like the SAVE Act, will do nothing. It won't go anywhere. She's going to file this. Republicans are going to throw it in the garbage. Senate's not going to pick up anything like this. It's not going to happen. As for the SAVE Act 2, which also passed the House, and we will talk about that later, that's going to die in the Senate. It's not going anywhere. Biden wouldn't let it happen as it is. So all of this is virtue signaling as the Titanic is sinking. But here's the story. New York's own Rep. AOC made good on her promise on Wednesday to file articles of impeachment against Supreme Court Justices Alito and Thomas. And, it's kind of funny because they're the most based. This comes as senators seek to engage in a new round of lawfare against Thomas over alleged ethics complaints regarding vacations and trips. A reporter for MSNBC said that AOC was not actually filing impeachment charges over opinions because she couldn't, but due to, quote, conduct around the office, she accused them of not properly disclosing financial benefits and gifts they were given by donors or others. She also claimed that Thomas and Alito refused to recuse themselves from cases where they had a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party when asked to force a justice to recuse himself from a case. Chief Justice Roberts said that absolutely he would not do that and spoke to the independence of justices and the court itself. Clarence Thomas and Alito, they're like the best we have in government right now. And it's not surprising to see with all of the problems we're experiencing, right? We have Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro in jail, Merrick Garland flouting the law, and the DOJ refusing to hold him accountable. And the one thing we have, the one thread we have are these guys at the Supreme Court doing their best and ruling correctly. So, of course, AOC wants to go after them. But like I said, all this is her throwing red meat to her base in her district. It will have no impact on anything.
I think that's part of it. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think AOC knows to a certain extent it won't go anywhere. And even if it did go somewhere, what is she hoping will happen? That Biden will get to appoint someone before he's voted out? I mean, realistically, I think Clarence and Alito and Thomas are great, but likely they will retire within the next 4 years. And so there's panic over who's going to replace them. To me, it seems like either she knows it's not going to go anywhere or she's delusional enough to think that she could somehow get Biden to appoint Supreme Court justices before the year's over, and that's just not going to happen.
See, this is where I'm kind of at an impasse. Rep. Luna introduced her inherent contempt resolution against Garland, and 4 Republicans defected, joining Democrats to stop accountability. And I hate the Republican Party. And so my attitude at this point is kind of like, as predicted, the Republicans won in 2022 and did nothing. They're complaining that they don't have, it's a slim majority. You see what happens when these defectors, they do this thing. Okay, I don't know how you're going to get me to care. And this is the challenge. If Trump wins and Republicans take the Senate and the House, we can expect that if Alito and Thomas resign or retire, and then Trump gets to name their successors, we're going to get some pretty good ones. And that's what's at stake. But boy, are the Republicans in the House trying everything in their power to set the whole thing on fire. Trump came out supporting Luna. Speaker Johnson was like, I don't know about all this. And then 4 defectors shut the whole thing down. I'm at a point where I'm just like, I don't know if I care to support this party at all.
Who defected?
I don't have the list pulled up. We were trying to find the total vote list, but the Independents reported it's 4. We'll get into that story next. But to go back to the Supreme Court, though, my point is, this is going to be the most consequential election, not because Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, but because the Supreme Court, these are people who are going to be serving for decades, 40, 50 years, maybe, depending on how old they get.
So concerning.
And that's why we need a full sweep across the House, the Senate, and the presidency to make sure. I mean, look, I guess if you somehow win the House and the Senate, but not the presidency, they're not going to get anybody in, or Biden might try to pack the court, or Biden, whoever it is, we don't know. But this is the conundrum, I guess.
But this is a preview of what will happen if the Democrats take the House. They will go all in. They will go to war with pretty much every effective Republican. And so AOC is just showing exactly what will happen if the Democrats take charge and take control of the House, or if we only have a thin majority in the House. Democrats will keep up these types of maneuvers. But I also think AOC doing this move this week, it's a diversion tactic because Democrats are having a really, really bad week. So she is trying to show the Democrat base, hey, we still are fighting. Focus on the Supreme Court. Vote for us. We will fight for you. But to your point, Tim, and I'm sure we'll get more into it, like this is why Republican primaries are so important. If you're not happy with the way Republicans are caving right now, you've got to participate in Republican primaries. And when Republicans cross the aisle and they don't do what they campaigned on, you have to primary them. It's unpleasant, but you have to do it. Last time I ran, I took down a 12-year incumbent in a primary, and it was very unpleasant, but it needed to happen.
But a lot of these primaries have already happened.
Yeah.
So I looking at, Brandon Herrera,
right.
It's disappointing to see that people don't turn out.
It's very disappointing.
And then when it comes to November, you end up with these crackpots who do nothing. Now again, to be fair, Republicans could do very little here.
Right.
But again, we're going to get into that story in a second as it pertains to what everything we see, be it Democrat or Republican. Right now, it's mostly just red meat. Yeah. It's look at me. I mean, and you know this, everybody knows this. When you see those videos of members of Congress and it's a tight shot and they're yelling like, we got to pass this bill. There's nobody in there.
Chamber's empty.
The whole chamber's empty and they're yelling so they can get the clip on C-SPAN and then spread it around in their
elected later.
Hey, that's all it is. Fundraise. I'd be like, look at me yelling. It's like nobody was in the room.
Part of the purpose of these people is red meat, or at least like it's to not. You're not supposed to do a lot. They're supposed to like oversee the process while the private sector runs the show, and they're just making sure stuff doesn't go haywire. They want to make sure monopolies don't pop. They're supposed to make sure monopolies don't pop up in the private sector. The president's not really supposed to be making all these direct actions and all these official proclamations and changes. He's supposed to be overseeing things and vetoing the crazy stuff and just making sure stuff is business as usual and then run the military. But instead, we've got these intense like judicial attack mechanisms that have been going off, and then Congress is still gridlocked. It's that's the disturbing part, is that the executive branch is doing too much.
Well, too much, yeah. And unfortunately, Congress has given them that power. I mean, Republicans put forward a lot of different measures that would have restored the power of the legislative branch when it comes to government regulation. Luckily, we had the Chevron ruling that's going to give a lot of power back to the legislative branch away from the administrative state. But you're 100% right. If we don't have Congress that's going to actually show up and fight and follow the Constitution, then the president, the executive branch, is going to be able to take us off the war, levy taxes, and turn the administrative state, the judicial system against the American people.
Is it the Patriot Act, basically, that set that in motion? I don't know when it all began.
In terms of the national security state, for sure, but the Chevron ruling.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
What was it, like late 70s or something? Or
mid-70s?
Yeah, late 70s. So that basically said that administrative branches could interpret their own rules. So this allowed for a lot of wacky things, notably the pistol brace ban, where the ATF is like, we've just decided that pistol braces are stock, so we're banning them. You can't have them if it makes your pistol into a short-barreled rifle if it is a stock. And it's like, whoa, you made that up.
Yeah.
You unilaterally decided to make something illegal. You can't do that in this country. That's insane that was ever allowed. Now they really can't. Now the Supreme Court said no. So that's why AOC, of course, look, AOC is an evil person. All right. And I don't use that word lightly, but more and more that word's been popping up, especially in my vocabulary. What is the goal that she is doing? She's never going to succeed in impeaching Alito or Clarence Thomas. There's no real grounds for it. It would never pass the House. It would never get enough votes in the Senate. It's just going nowhere. Plus, there's a different procedure, I think, for impeaching justices than a president. So it's pointless. What she's doing is tricking stupid people into giving her money.
Exactly.
That's what she's doing. And that's what the majority of these members of Congress do.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I mean, but if the Democrats had the majority, I think they would do everything they could to actually impeach, or at least jam them up and destroy their lives and destroy future Republican nominees for those positions. Because that was the whole thing with all the lawfare they've done against President Trump. I think they knew in their heart of hearts that most of it was going to fail, but the process is the punishment. And so they throw it at us, and then we have to use a lot of resources to defend against it. And so at the end of the day, it does become a war of attrition. And the Democrats are not afraid to fight on that front.
Yep. But I don't see this going anywhere. It is funny that she did decide to actually file the impeachment, and
a woman of her word.
There you go. There you go. Of her crazy word that we can all see. But it is wild what I hear in the wilds from regular people about what they think is actually going on. They listen to too much MSNBC and CNN,
right,
and they live in this crackpot reality that's just not true.
Yeah, it's disturbing. The Agenda 2025 thing, my mother, Project 2025, and she was like, oh, and that Trump 25, and I was like, oh, actually, he came out and said he didn't know anything about it and didn't support it. And she was like, no, they didn't, that's not, I didn't hear that. I didn't.
Yeah, you only hear one side of the story.
But this is this is the crazy thing about the left's position. Tucker Carlson's in Australia. a journalist asks a question, and she says, "You've stated that in Europe and America, white citizens are being replaced by foreigners." And he goes, "Did I say white? I don't believe I said that." And she goes, "Well, you did." And he goes, "No, I didn't. And I challenge you to quote me because I never said that." He said, "There are black families in America that have been there for 400 years. Their interests are just as valid as any white Americans. I've said American citizens are being replaced with immigrants." And she said, "Well, you said this. It's been reported." And it's like, well, hold on. The man is standing in front of you saying, "I disavow that."
Right.
But the
Not even I disavow. I never said it.
Right. It's like I reject that premise. So it's fascinating, especially when Trump comes out and says, "I don't know what Project 2025 is. Some of the things are okay. Some are really bad. I have nothing to do with it. I wish them luck." And then I hear from people, they go, "Well, Trump's lying." You know, wait. Why? Who's he lying to? Like, I don't get it. What so he's trying to get elected on something he doesn't actually want. Like just strange to me.
It's just a game. I mean,
so that would imply that Trump supporters don't support Project 2025. Is that what you're saying? Because if Donald Trump disavows it to earn votes, the implication is his constituents don't want it. No, they want it. They're all lying too. It's like you live in a crackpot reality. The man is telling you what he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in what world would a campaign say that this outside group speaks for me 100%? I mean, no campaign would say that. I wouldn't say that as a candidate, even with groups I'm, generally ideologically aligned with. If they're putting out statements on my behalf or someone says, well, this group says this, do you support it? I would say, well, no. I speak for me. If you have a question, why don't you ask me? But that's why most of the time these attacks, they come not directly to your face because they don't want to give you a chance to respond. All they want to do is smear you with the barrage of 2025, racist, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know if it's ever me, but I know a lot of people who will be in the public eye and they'll get attacked for something. And in the article, it'll say, they didn't respond to comment or whatever else. And actually, they requested comment 20 minutes before they published the story. So they never even gave you a chance to respond to it. Like, Trump has to go out on his own and be like, I don't know what this is and I don't want it because there's no mainstream media trying to talk to him about it. From what I can see a lot of the time. I mean, so much of everything right now is just sort of political theater. AOC is launching this to say to her voters, look, I'm doing things that even other Democrats aren't willing to do. I mean, Joe Biden just gave the Medal of Freedom to the NATO Secretary General. This guy is from Norway and he's like, you're doing a great job with NATO. Here's our top award. It's just to seem like they are able to celebrate things in a way that other people can't, that they're better at this than even their own colleagues. It's kind of gross.
I want to jump to the story from The Independent. Attempt to hold Garland in inherent contempt of Congress fails with 4 Republicans joining Democrats. Democrats criticize stupid resolution from Republican Anna Paulina Luna of Florida. Let me give you the simple version of the story. Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro are in prison. Steve Bannon was instructed to turn over documents. However, he was also instructed by Donald Trump not to, citing executive privilege, putting him in between 2 branches of government. Congress saying we want them, the executive branch saying executive privilege don't. Who does he defy? Eventually, Trump relented and said, okay, Bannon, you can hand over the documents and testify. And Bannon said, okay. Congress said, too late, we're putting you in prison. After Joe Biden was found to have committed crimes pertaining to classified documents in his home and office and other locations, there was with this investigation, it was determined by Robert Hur he would not be prosecuted. He had a conversation with Joe Biden, determined that Biden is a sad old man with a bad memory. So effectively, he is not competent to stand trial, as many people have interpreted it. The Republicans wanted the audio tapes of that interview, of that meeting. So they, for a lot of reasons. One, what's Biden's mental state? Was he able to communicate effectively? And is there anything omitted from the recording? They subpoenaed Merrick Garland saying, turn over the tapes. He said no. They said, you are now in contempt of Congress. He said, so what? It was referred to the DOJ for criminal proceedings, and the DOJ said, try us, too bad, and did nothing. So Rep. Luna said, then we will use our enforcement authority, which is inherent contempt, to at first arrest Merrick Garland. That was shifted to a $10,000 fine per day, $10,000 fine per day. That died in Congress because 4 Republicans defected. I'm a Democrat now. I'm going to vote straight Democrat across the board. Joe Biden's my guy, and I'm voting only Democrat.
I can't stand party politics. That's my biggest problem with all of it is...
Democrat all the way.
Even calling them defectors, was like, what are they defecting? I can't stand party politics. Like, vote your heart. But who were
because they're supposed to be, we're supposed to get equality under the law. But my view now is there's only one political party that's willing to wield power, and it's the Democrats. So I should just be on their side, right? At least then I can advocate for arresting people, and maybe it'll happen. The other issue is maybe, just maybe, the only reason that the country actually functions in any capacity is because while Democrats are constantly trying to set the curtains on fire, Republicans are slapping their hands away. And the moment the Republicans stop, they'll just torch the whole place to the ground, and maybe then we can rebuild something without them in it.
We need a stronger majority of Republicans that are actually going to stand up so that these 4 or 5 who always tend to cross the party lines, that their votes don't matter, that we can cancel them out. Right now, we have a slim majority. So when we try to do bold actions like this, we're going to fail because we just have to realize that some people, they're not going to do what they're supposed to do. They're not going to do what their constituents actually hired them to do. That's a primary issue that should be sorted out in the primary, but we've got to have a stronger control of the House of Representatives so that Speaker Johnson isn't always having to, or whoever is the next speaker, isn't constantly having to play this like, oh, do I have enough votes with a thin majority? We need to have people who are ready to use power effectively to hold people accountable. This isn't partisan politics. I mean, what Merrick Garland has done basically since he's been ahead of the DOJ has been prosecuting Americans outside the boundaries of the law. That's got to be reined in. Republicans should have defunded the DOJ a very long time ago until they stopped going after grandmothers that, you know, were protesting abortion clinics, parents at school board meetings. That should have all been handled a long while ago. But this right here was a great effort by Anna Paulina Luna to actually get some real accountability. So we've got to hold Republicans accountable in primaries, and we've got to get a stronger majority. I understand the frustration. We have every right to be frustrated.
2022.
Yep.
Republicans win and do nothing.
Yeah.
McCarthy plays the same old dirty games. He gets booted out. That's the one good thing I think we got. Burning $1 billion in IOUs was hilarious. But nothing changes. Nothing changes. We are... I'm afraid I have to say it this way. I already saw someone super chat asking, for what reason would anyone obey the law when Democrats do not? Why would anyone else decide to play a game that no one else is playing? So what I see is, with Steve Bannon in prison and the Republicans unwilling to actually uphold the system, what we have seen here today with this ruling, with the vote in Congress, not that it would go anywhere to be, well, it's contempt of Congress, meaning Congress could act unilaterally in this regard. If they voted for it, it doesn't need to go anywhere else. They would hold him in contempt. It be done. What we are seeing here, there's no system. There is no law. There is no legality. It doesn't matter what's on the books. If the Democrats decide to put someone in prison, they do. And the Republicans will block you from getting equality. I don't care what Steve Bannon did. I don't care what Merrick Garland did. I care that I can look at the news and say, there is a logical system in place that I can understand. Right now, I can understand what that logical system is. It is that Democrats will imprison whoever they want, and Republicans will help them. And then Republicans will block you from upholding equality. I'm not asking for retribution. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking that we actually see the system function as intended. It does not. They've proven that today. Republicans have just taken a dump all over the floor. And for that, it is going to be really hard for me to cast a ballot for any one of these people. Sorry, hate to say it. Because a lot of people are going to be like, but Tim, if we get the majority and Trump wins Supreme Court and we get justices and retirements, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't care anymore. I literally don't. There is no system. There is nothing that I look to. There's no logic. There's no 1 + 2 = 3. I don't see any of it. I see Democrats bashing the walls, burning everything down, and Republicans holding their hand to my chest and laughing while they do it.
Dude, Jamal Bowman pulled the fire alarm in the congressional building and didn't go to jail.
And they say to me, but Tim, you just got to vote Republican harder. Vote Republican harder, and then maybe we'll do something about it. I'm like, nah.
I'm kind of a glass half full guy. We are making progress. I mean, Anna Paulina Luna is a freshman, and for a freshman to put forward something this bold, a couple Congresses ago, even with a Republican majority, this never would have happened from a freshman. And we're also seeing a lot of progress on things like national defense, the way that the Ukraine aid package went, and just in the course of like 2 years, when the Ukraine issue first flared up, you had the vast majority of the Republican caucus that were all on board, send Ukraine billions of dollars. But within the course of just 2 years, we've moved it. So now we have a majority of the majority against more endless wars, against more of that funding. So we are making slow incremental progress. I totally understand the frustration, but we do need people to participate in those primaries, vote Republican up and down. Otherwise, it's going to be more Democrats coming back after us and destroying the country.
That's a great point, because it's a dark, deep tangled web that we live in, and it's been like this for probably 100 years, probably since the Federal Reserve and the bureaucrats tried to take over the country. So like we're just now seeing it, and for the first time, like the government was in total control, like George Orwell style in the 90s and in 2005. George Bush, freaking Dick Cheney, the amount of power those guys wielded, and then signed into law with Patriot Act and stuff. So it is frustrating to like witness that, to see this broken oligarchy. But like you're saying, people are stepping up and people are getting brave and coming together and working. I don't know if working from within the system. We need both. We need from within the system, but we really need a private sector that's willing to say no and be disobedient to a corrupt government and work outside the bounds of that system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think
I want to real quick just give a shout out to our good friends, John Duarte of California, Dave Joyce of Ohio, Tom McClintock of California, and Mike Turner of Ohio. These men should never see another penny in contributions from anyone. Now, to be fair, these guys in California, they're probably far left as it is, and they don't count as Republicans, so it is a slim majority. As for Dave Joyce and Mike Turner in Ohio, mark my words, I will take every political lever that I have, and I will do everything in my power. I will whisper in every ear I can, do not support these men. And we must do everything in our power to make sure that they are either we're not gonna expel them from Congress. That's not likely to happen. But I will do everything I can to support any and every primary challenge that comes their way. In fact, I may even personally fly down, hold an event, and stand in a soapbox and call them out personally and scream about how these guys are. They don't belong in Congress. They have personally set the matches aflame, struck the match, and thrown them on the floor to say to the American people, there is no law. None. As so long as Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro in prison and Merrick Garland is free, there is nothing. And it's their fault.
And all of them, I just checked their Twitters really quickly, that none of them have put out a statement addressing this. I mean, that's sort of my concern. If you don't like a bill and you're in Congress, okay, but give me an explanation. Right. I mean, I'm not a constituent of any of these four men, but I think that they should have to say, like, look, I voted against this for this reason. This is what the explanation was. Because even if I don't agree with it, that should be the transparency that they have with their voters. And unfortunately, in the internet age, you can get that out immediately. So it does create a pressure where they have to respond sooner rather than later. They can't say, oh, well, you know, business and this, that, and the other. Like, they could have, they probably knew how they were going to vote on this for a long time. They should have had a prepared statement that went out, because I think, you know, again, if you're voting against this, I think I should know why. And that, again, I talk about the Mayorkas impeachment vote frequently when I'm on here, because there were only 3 Republicans who defected and voted against it. But all of them were like, look, I think this is a misinterpretation of the law or whatever. I don't necessarily agree, but at least that they were explaining what their word was and why they were standing by it. I think that's sort of the challenge here, which is like, if you are not going to address it, you're hoping no one knows why you didn't vote against it. We're in the internet era. People are going to be able to find this out, you know, immediately. But I think you're right. It is fascinating that this was a move by a freshman. I think Anna Paulina Luna is really brave, and she's definitely of a class of Republicans that are bold in what they choose to do. And I hope that is a trend among a lot of politicians, both on the state and federal level, because I think it's a new day, and we need to see some more creative actions taken.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely need the bold new leadership. And so I understand the frustration, but the glass is definitely, I think it's half full. I think we're making progress. To your point, when these people vote and they don't talk about their votes and they don't share their votes and you have to dig it up, that just shows you how little that a lot of these representatives respect their constituents, because they know people aren't paying attention. So they think they can get away with a lot of these really bad votes. I'm a really big fan of what Tim Burchett does. Like he basically goes live like right as he's walking off the floor. I frankly don't see why there isn't 435 members of Congress doing that.
Every single one of them do it.
Hey, I'm going to tell you what we just did in here because you're paying my paycheck.
It was the first time I had ever seen Tim Burchett, who we were able to have on last night, was through one of his videos, walking off being like, here's what we voted on, and here's why I did what I did. I mean, for the most part, all of these congressional members have staffers. They know what's coming down the pike. They kind of know what legislation is coming up that day. They're not totally surprised. They should hopefully be able to use the internet, their outlets to give an explanation to their voters. I think that's why it seems like you can't trust politicians even when you supported them, you donate them, you elect them, because it's like once they get there, it all goes behind closed doors and they're kind of moving behind the scenes, and you don't know if that person is the same person that you maybe met at a rally or, gave $5 to or whatever it was.
The Supreme Court's got to do, I don't know if they have to, but they write opinions after they do a vote. I would like to see Congress do that, but I'm with you. I think they should do videos because we're in the 21st century.
Walk off the floor and do it.
Use the best technology on earth or become the secondary power on earth. Like if we want to be the strongest authority on earth, we need to use the best technology to do that.
I mean, governors do this too, where they'll release a statement when they're like, okay, I have signed a bunch of bills today. And, sometimes they have lengthy explanations for one bill, why they're supporting it or why they're against it. But sometimes it's just like, here are 5 bills that I signed into law. Here's what it is. I'm against it. I'm for it. You could do quick summaries. This could be the way that the system leverages the opportunities that they have to communicate. Because again, if you live in one of these people's districts, I think you do want to know why Merrick Garland isn't being held accountable when defying a subpoena if other people do have to comply with these congressional subpoenas.
I hear a lot of people say, you got to understand optics. Joe Biden's in such disarray. That was Johnson's argument. Yeah, these tapes would have exposed more of that. So why block it?
It's basically a national security issue at this point. I mean, like there's a strong case to be made for the 25th Amendment. I mean, who's answering the phone at 3 a.m. when there's a crisis, anywhere in the world?
Didn't Corinne Jean-Pierre say he has a team?
And the other issue then is people saying, but these guys in California, these guys in Ohio are in, what did someone just say, soft red districts. Democrats don't have a problem with that. And I think Democrats in swing districts will, if Nancy Pelosi or Hakeem Jeffries goes to them and says that they want them to literally just scorched earth, swing district Democrats do it without question. They do it. The Democratic Party is unified even in vulnerable districts, and the Republicans are not. I'm going to need a strong argument because I'm not seeing it. I see an argument for Trump. Trump came out in support of Luna. But for Republicans in Congress, I can only tell you this. We got Riley Moore. I'm excited about Riley. Riley's a good dude. So we're good where we're at. I can't speak for the people of Ohio, but that's the real question, the real answer. The real issue, I suppose, is if you live in those districts, you need to get on the phone and you need to ask them why they betrayed the rule of law in this country. It's not about party. I don't care about I don't like the Republicans. Ask them why it's okay that Steve Bannon's in prison right now, but Merrick Garland is not, and why they think criminals should be allowed to walk free. And ask them, why do they support Democrat policies which result in criminals being free?
Yeah, I think that's also one of the responsibilities we have as voters, which is to know who our elected representatives are and to be active in pursuing answers from them. I think so often people are like, it happens far away from me. But really, we've talked about this a couple different times on the show, but like you send one email and that might actually be the 100th email they've gotten about it. It might really have an effect, or you're pointing out something that they're not aware of, right? If you're in Congress and you think nobody in my district cares about that, then it really matters if someone reaches out to you and says, I care about this issue. This matters to me.
That's a lot of times what they're banking on is that nobody's paying attention. Like my opponent has voted in lockstep with the Biden administration. She comes back to the district and she speaks like a moderate. So we've actually had to start an entire website where we track her votes so people can be aware of how she's voting in lockstep with Biden. It's mariewatch.com or it's on my website, joekentforcongress.com. You can find it there. So we've had to track that because she never talks about it.
Well, and wouldn't it be interesting if that's what the responsibility of the local paper was? And maybe there are some local papers that do that, right? But they had one beat reporter that just tracks how the Congress, like both on the state and federal level, how those people vote and what it is. It's just like one-line summaries. They voted yes on this. They voted no on this.
Yeah.
There might be things you have to look up for more intense explanation, but somebody should keep a record of how people who represent you are. And I think that is sort of, you're right, what people are hoping, that they can not talk about what they voted no on and just talk about what they're working on. I mean, I get that there is a lot going on in Congress, and I understand that maybe not every voter is going to be super informed on every issue. On the other hand, you should have an explanation ready when someone says, why did you vote against this?
What are the rules on spending money on billboards and stuff? Like, do you know, like if I wanted to say spend like $100,000 putting billboards in their districts in Ohio saying that they have sold out their country and betrayed the American people, is there a restriction on that, or aren't you allowed to do it, right?
If you start a super PAC, you can spend an unlimited amount of money.
But even like me as an individual, can I just?
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
Just as an individual.
The only red line is if you're coordinating with somebody like a primary challenger. If you're coordinating with their campaign, you can't do that. There's a limit on money for you to do that. But if you do it independently as a private citizen, it's on you.
Do targeted ads on like by location.
On YouTube requires you to do this like weird verification thing to be
Facebook.
I think Billboards would be more effective. No, all of it. Doing election ads on social media is very difficult.
It's very challenging.
So like even when I tried running ads on YouTube, the mere mention, the word Trump flags you as a political ad. Like you could say like, well, you know, pizza Trump's whatever. And like using the word Trump as literally Trump. And it's just like, nope, that's political. You said Trump. It's an election year or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I'm kind of feeling like maybe we should put together some kind of ads and launch it in their district. I don't know. It's a question. You know what I think? I think I want to do it. And I don't know if it matters all that much. Maybe I'll just do it in the next couple of weeks. I'll call my broker for, you know, billboard ads, and because I don't really care how this will impact. I don't think it will impact anything related to the upcoming election, and the primaries are over. So I more so just want to insult them because they are bad people.
That you can do.
Yeah.
The problem with getting a guy out of office is any press is good press for the most part. So an ad that says he's a horrible guy, don't vote for him, is just giving that guy free media attention, is making him famous.
Yes and no.
Unless you have a candidate that you can run against him that you want to promote, but that's then becomes you need a pack.
Yes and no. For celebrities, there's no such thing as bad press. For politicians, bad press is just has to be done in a certain way, right? So you could praise him for refusing to uphold the law. You could say, you know what, sarcastically, it's a good thing that he voted to allow criminals to walk free. And then people are going to say, what does that mean? And make them ask the question. And then make him say whatever he wants to say to counter it. But these are bad people. I'm so sick of these people in Congress. There's only a small handful of good people, you know, and they've come on this show and they talk to us about it. But these other scumbag rhino establishment shills will sell this country down the river and then buy the stock on China so they can profit as it's happening.
Yep, gone on for too long. But I do think when you get the right candidate and the right messaging, people are starting to wake up. People are getting more engaged. I mean, that's how you get Anna Paulina Luna. That's how you get Matt Gaetz and a lot of good guys in the Freedom Caucus, Tim Burchett. So we're slowly making progress. We just need people to stay engaged.
And sometimes bad people do good things. Good people do bad things. Like I wonder about the founding fathers, and I've just got such like an idealized version of them in my mind. I think they're all like great men, just paragons of virtue. And Ben Franklin's like an alcoholic philanderer, had sex with women and kids out of wedlock. God knows the horrible things he said to people and did to people behind curtains. But because of what he did for society, he's lauded as a hero. And I think we're just seeing a lot of the maybe good people doing evil, doing bad, or sometimes their horrible behavior is getting propagated. Like Trump, people went after him for his behavior because he said Rosie O'Donnell was a fat pig. But the things he was doing was like keeping us out of wars in the Middle East for the most part. He was trying to end the wars in the Middle East. So that like history would look at that as a good president trying to end the wars, get America out of the war, if that the wars
I think
are
it is
deemed unjust.
a spin issue. I mean, this is when Jim Inhofe, the senator from Oklahoma, died. The Washington Post ran this thing that was like, it's anti-climate, whatever. And actually, he has a really long history. He served in the Senate for an incredibly long time. I don't need you to love everything he did, but like, if you make everything about your own personal vendetta against people, you're actually completely slanted in your presentation of history.
Let's jump to this next story from the New York Post. Ladies and gentlemen, the House has passed the bill to require proof of citizenship when registering to vote, and 198 Democrats tried to block it. Yeah, interestingly. The House approved a measure Wednesday to require proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote, a measure strongly opposed by top Democrats. A majority of 216 Republicans and 5 Democrats voted to pass the Safeguard America Voter Eligibility Act, with swing district reps Henry Cuellar of Texas, Vicente Gonzalez, Jared Golden, Don Davis, and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez among those crossing party lines. Now, for those that are watching live, I will say I stand corrected when I said Democrats march in lockstep with their party. In this instance, swing Democrats actually did defect, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway because Republicans were definitely going to pass this. And also, it wouldn't matter anyway because it will die in the Senate, or actually, it'll never make it to the Senate, and Biden would veto it anyway.
With those 5 that crossed party lines, just before that, those 5 voted with all the Democrats to keep that bill off the floor. So my opponent's one of those 5. But when the bill came up for the procedural vote to put it on the floor, every single Democrat, including those 5, voted against it. And then once it was going to be on the floor, leadership approved the 5 swing districts who are vulnerable right now. I'm up in the polls. Let them vote with the Republicans because, like you said, it's going to die in the Senate.
Yep.
And that way they can go home and say, look at the things that I do.
He's lying about me. I don't want illegal immigrants to vote in our elections.
It's interesting because it would be nice to see authenticity on this issue because I think it does affect all Americans. I mean, we talk about illegal immigration in terms of crime. It affects every American in terms of the crime. You talked about the drug trafficking across the border, the effect it has on the area you live in. There have been reports that, African-American voters are saying, hey, this is actually disproportionately affecting me because you're making it so I'm having a harder time with employment. There are challenges that I'm facing because of this. I mean, I think people have a more nuanced understanding of the complexity of allowing illegal immigration to flood across the border. And so it would actually behoove a lot of Democrats to say, hey, we take the verification of who is participating in the election seriously because we know it really could affect you and affect your life. I don't think that has to be like some sort of weird race issue. I mean, even the White House, when they condemned this act, were saying one of their complaints was it'll make it harder for Americans to vote, as if Americans can't produce some sort of ID or verification that they are citizens. I mean, it's just so ridiculous that it's obvious why they want this bill to go through.
But when you are registering to vote, typically, most people through the DMV, you have brought your piece of mail, your birth certificate, and your social security card and your credit cards with you to get your ID in the first place. The idea that you could not produce any of that to register to vote, but you have to get an ID. It's just bonkers.
It doesn't make any sense. That's how threadbare the defense against it from the White House was. And again, it stands to reason that there are Democrats who, I think you're right. They probably all were like, well, I really need to vote for this because of my constituents. But hopefully there are at least some of them that can see the logical thread of like, no, it's worth verifying who is voting in the elections. Asking for proof of citizenship isn't a racist act. It's just, hey, you should be a citizen here to vote in the country. That's who gets to vote here.
Yeah. Like 2 years ago when we said that Biden opened up the border to flood the country to skew the census numbers so that they could get more allocation of U.S. House of Representative seats, they could get more electoral college votes, they could eventually get these people to vote. They said that we were conspiracy theorists, we were racist, we were horrible. This is the second vote where they've proven exactly what their intent is. A month ago, the Republicans put forward a bill that said only American citizens would be counted in the census and only American citizens would be counted when it comes time to allocate U.S. House of Representative seats, electoral college votes. All the Democrats voted against that. So this is now the second time the Democrats have said they basically want illegal immigrants and non-American citizens voting in our elections, completely and totally disrespecting American citizens and our ability to choose our own government.
I've been thinking about it a little bit because the White House had said at one point when they condemned this act, they were saying, oh, well, it's already illegal for illegal immigrants to vote in our elections. But then we talk about the HAVV, the voter verification system, and how many people come up as a non-match. And it makes me think like, okay, well, if you believe the law is reinforced, this shouldn't offend you. And then also you should think it's good because someone who doesn't speak our language, who's trying to get a driver's license or whatever, may not understand that they are being registered to vote. And then you're setting them up for failure. I mean, it's so illogical that they would be opposed to this unless they're just going to be direct about what they want.
Well, my response when they said it's already illegal for them for non-citizens to vote, why make the law? And I said, you're right. Murder is already illegal too. Why ban guns?
Right. Exactly. Why talk about it?
Great. There we go. So you repeal the NFA, and then we won't worry about this one, I guess. I don't know.
Do you think it's good that they brought this to the floor anyways, even though it'll die in the Senate? You think yes?
Yeah, it's very good. It's very good to show exactly what would happen if the Democrats get control of the U.S. House, if they continue to have control of the Senate, and if they get control of the executive branch, and to put them on record. They're on record right here, and I really encourage people to look at the procedural vote because procedure really dictates and a lot of times trumps policy. If you can control procedure, you can control policy. And every time the Democrats put forward pieces of legislation, they vote in lockstep on the procedural vote. And anytime they go to block anything the Republicans are doing, like closing down the border, stopping inflation, preventing illegals from voting, the Democrats will vote in lockstep to attempt to kill it before it goes on the floor.
Yeah, I think it's good too.
And the reason procedure is more valuable is because deciding what gets seen,
yes,
kind of, because people are going to vote yes on whatever they see, right, if they're going to vote yes at all. So So they'll get lockstep on the procedure to try and make sure things don't come to the floor. But then if they do, they're like, well, we can send like 9 of our guys to vote yes on that because we can afford it.
So it's a pretty big deal when you vote against the rule vote that your own party puts forward, and you never see Democrats do that. Democrats will always vote in lockstep. If Republicans go to put a bill forward and the House leadership, the minority leadership in this case, says don't vote for that, all the Democrats won't vote for it. Same thing when they have the majority. I mean, Pelosi had an iron fist. She made sure everybody was voting for all her rules. You don't see that as much on the Republican side. There's a lot of Republicans, the Freedom Caucus types, a lot of types that you guys have on this show. They will vote against the procedural vote to jam it up if they don't agree with the bill. They won't vote straight party line. They will vote with their conscience and with their district.
You know what? I just saw this really great super chat from Gary Marks. He says, you can't even buy Sudafed cold medicine without ID. Yeah. Combine that statement with the Democrats' arguments against voter ID, which is...
Well, you can't expect people to have IDs and know where to get them. Just whichever. We can't say.
No, what's the Democrat argument?
Disenfranchised, poor people,
the Democrat argument is that predominantly Latino and Black people don't know how to get IDs.
How can they get Sudafed?
So then think about these cities that have banned the sale of Sudafed without ID and what they're trying to say. Democrats, what are you implying about the minority community when you require them to have IDs to buy cold medicine?
Yeah.
They're making a very, very interesting statement by doing that.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't apply logic to it. It's right up in your face. They basically want illegals to vote. Anytime you make a logical argument, they're like, yes, but the border's open and we're trying to flood the zone.
Yes, but this is how we'll be voting on this issue. Stop talking about it.
Exactly.
Because I think that's the other part. There's a lot of we don't want to continue to have these conversations. And I think even 4 years ago, you could have been like, they would have thrown out racism, right? They would have been like, you're a racist if you vote for this. This is able. And there wasn't that kind of complaint right now. It was like, this is ridiculous. Even I saw a couple quotes in the Independent article we had up earlier. The minority leader for when she was asked about Anna Paulina Luna's bill was like, it's just a waste of time. There becomes there's a shift in narrative being like, well, it's ridiculous. The White House saying, oh, the SAVE Act isn't necessary. It's going from, and they don't do this on everything, but on some of these issues, it's less about attacking you to make you feel bad and feel scared to vote for it. It's more about like, well, actually, you guys are just wasting time. This is ridiculous. Right. Again, I think it's to kind of distance themselves from the conversation entirely.
And to just be dismissive of it, be like, oh no, this isn't a real thing. That's not really happening. And it's like, well, then why'd you guys open the border up?
Yeah. Are there any other issues? I liked what you said before that like now we have on record who is voting on this and how they voted. And to your point, the procedural vote might be more indicative than the actual vote. Are there any other issues like this that you would like to see brought before Congress to see how representatives shake out before the election?
I think that we should continue to vote on H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act. I think that should be brought up pretty much every week and put people on record, because the Democrats right now are in full retreat mode from the Biden agenda. After the debate, the Democrats were all like, oh, they're distancing themselves from Biden after voting in lockstep with the Biden agenda. So it's kind of like, what's the deal, guys? Were you following Biden, or did you know that he was mentally declined, and what's your excuse for following him? But I would like to see H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act, put forward basically every single week to put people on record. Like, we have an invasion on our southern border. What is your excuse for not addressing that? People are dying in my district and throughout the country from fentanyl. What is the excuse for taking no action? And I think they should tie it to funding. I think that's worth shutting the government down over, saying, hey, we're not going to fund this government one penny until the executive branch actually secures the border. If you need extra tools, here's H.R. 2. It's sitting on Schumer's desk. Sign it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're saying your district in Washington, you guys, is it coming across the Canadian border?
Some is coming across the Canadian border as far as illegal immigration goes. I don't think we've seen an uptick from like the fentanyl and narcotics trafficking. That's all coming from south of the border, the San Diego area. But basically the I-5 corridor is the fentanyl expressway, because Washington, Oregon, and California all have very, very lax drug control measures. They're all sanctuary states as well. So the amount of illegal activity that takes place on that corridor, in particular the trafficking of fentanyl, it's just off the charts. We've seen a skyrocketing numbers of people people dying from fentanyl overdoses. In our district, I've done ride-alongs of all our different county law enforcement, talked with the DEA task force, and they say all of it's coming right from across the southern border.
When you say secure the border, are you concerned about the Canadian border?
No, I am for sure. Because of the CBP1 app, basically the ability to fly into the U.S. directly or fly into Canada and then cross the Canadian border. A lot of people from China, from Southwest Asia, are coming to Canada, to Vancouver in Canada, and then coming across the border that way, because they can basically book their travel through the CBP1 app to get access to the country and declare asylum. That's another big thing that HR2 closed. It closed the asylum loophole, because basically under Trump, you had to either remain in Mexico or go to the first safe third country. You couldn't come directly to America. Biden got rid of that. That's why if you look at the footage from the border, I've been down there twice, the people that are coming into the country illegally, they're not running away from the Border Patrol. They're running to the Border Patrol so that they can claim asylum right away. That automatically then gives them a legal status inside the U.S. That's why you hear AOC say, well, it's not illegal to declare asylum, because we're basically granting these people a legal status almost immediately.
It's like subsidized
it is.
immigration in some way, because
100%.
you say asylum and they're like, okay, well, now you can stay.
And it's going to make it harder to deport them.
Is it like a random guy with no ID comes across the border, a 27-year-old guy, speaks Spanish, you don't know who he is, where he's from, and he's like, I'm running away from the Venezuelan corruption, and you're like, okay, welcome to the United States.
They know exactly what to say.
And here's a work permit and a social security number.
Yeah. And a lot of them will ditch their IDs. When I was down there in San Diego, we did a whole video on it on my social media. There is just a massive amount of ID cards from all over the world that are getting thrown right on the Mexican side of the border, or right on the U.S. side of the border. So these guys will come, they'll ditch their documents, they'll claim asylum and say, hey, I'm being persecuted in my home country because of my political affiliation, my sexual orientation, my race. They know all those buzzwords to say, and that gives them a parole status in the country. But if without documentation, without an actual ID card of knowing who they are, it makes it even harder to vet them. But they've already been given a legal status into the United States.
Like they could have a fake name.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the Mexican government is issuing temporary IDs to Chinese nationals. So we found a lot of Mexican ID cards down there at the border that actually have, you can tell. You can look at the picture and you can look at the name. It's a Chinese person, but they've been given that ID card to give them a temporary status in Mexico as long as they're transiting through Mexico across the border.
The Chinese or the Mexicans are doing that?
The Mexican government is giving these ID cards, these temporary IDs, to Chinese citizens. I think they pay a couple $100 for it. And as long as they have a limited amount of time they stay in Mexico and they're transiting through to come to the U.S., that gives them a legal status inside Mexico. Right? Those ID cards are useless to them once they get to America, so they ditch them. There's guys down there who are ranchers along the border that have entire walls full of these ID cards.
It's wild how abused the system is, in large part because people know they can cross into America, and especially under Joe Biden, they know that the way he's positioned himself and the way his government works, they're going to allow you to stay, because once you declare asylum, and they're like, great, we're going to vet you, here's some paperwork, come back later. And maybe some people come back for their appointments or for their hearings and stuff, but probably not. And so you have people who have this claim to asylum but are not actually not completing the asylum process, or the asylum dates are years and years out, and it just becomes this terrible system. And then you'll get, Democrats especially being like, well, we need better cameras and more judges. And really, we just need to stop incentivizing people to illegally enter the country.
Yeah, none of the Democrat proposals have fixed the asylum loophole. Only HR2 fixes the asylum loophole, and that's something we've got to get our hands around. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have the invasion.
Let's jump to the story from the Washington Post. The opinion of Democratic Senator Peter Welch: Biden should withdraw for the good of the country. The stakes this November could not be higher. He says, I have great respect for President Biden. He saved our country from a tyrant. He's a man of uncommon decency. He cares deeply about our democracy. He has been one of the best presidents of our time. But I, like folks across the country, am worried about November's election. The stakes could not be higher. We cannot unsee President Biden's disastrous debate performance. We cannot ignore or dismiss the valid questions raised since that night. Blah, blah, blah. He basically goes on to say, for the good of the party, you get the idea. I want to stress this as we enter this segment. In 2020, March of 2020, The Atlantic published Stay Alive, Joe Biden. Democrats need little more than your corporeal presence. Little more from you than your corporeal presence. There were questions about whether Biden was too old and whether he was dying, whether the plates in his brain would negatively impact his ability to do the job. And that conversation was 4 years ago. We have since then seen so many videos. Trinidad shot at pressure, Batacalf care, next Nalrescent, whatever it is, he's muttered. So we know, those of us that have paid attention. So has Peter Welch. Peter Welch knows this. There is not a reality in which a senator who is more embroiled in politics than we is not aware of these videos and what is afflicting the Democratic Party, because it affects everybody down ballot. For him to come out now and say, we are shocked to have seen this, he's spitting in your face and he's laughing at you as he does. Democrats right now that are acting like they did not know, they are lying to you because they are evil.
Especially Senate Democrats who worked with Joe Biden for years and years and years, right? So there are people who were elected around the same time as him who are still in office who are saying like, everything's fine. I don't see a problem. That cannot be true, right? If I worked here, I mean, I work here every day. And if I stopped being able to speak correctly, not that I'm super articulate as it is right now, everyone in this room would notice. I mean, it's just not possible that his colleagues in the Senate are not aware of what's going on, especially because he's such a public figure.
There's that phenomenon where if you hang out with somebody every day and they're getting fatter and fatter, you don't notice it. Whereas people that haven't seen them in a long time are like, whoa, you've gained 15 pounds of fat in your face. So that might have been happening with Biden, but that just indicates that they're stupid and they're not perceptive.
Right. And they worked with him intensely for years in the Senate. Then he became the VP. Yeah. Then he took some time off. He still hangs around Washington, and they're still seeing him. I mean, to your point, yes, maybe if every single day you see someone, you don't notice all of the changes, but they are familiar with him. They knew him at his prime, so to speak, and they have still been exposed to him. You can't tell me they don't see any change at all. That's just lying. I think Peter Welch is interesting because he's the first senator to come out and say, you should step down, because it's like, what, 9 members of the House who have said something to that effect at this point. But I don't know how you feel about this. I really don't think Biden is going to step down. I think he's going to continue with both the current presidency and his efforts for re-election.
I think we can't let it matter whether Biden stays or not, because these Biden policies are destroying the country. So we can't let the Democrats do a bait and switch right now. Like, look, if the country was on a good track, or even just like, I don't know, it's kind of a toss up, the Democrats wouldn't even be talking about switching out their guy no matter what he said on the debate stage. They would actually have something to run on. The Democrats have nothing to run on right now. They're not going to talk about the border because they're destroying our country through illegal immigration and through fentanyl. They're not going to talk about the economy. Americans are getting destroyed right now by Bidenomics and by this economy. And the list goes on. We're on the cusp of World War III. The Democrats won't run on any of this. All they're trying to do is fearmonger about Trump, about Project 2025. And they're going to try and use this Biden bait and switch to give them a pass for voting for all these Biden policies. They all need to be held accountable. I mean, my opponent, Peter Welch, all these guys. Okay, if you guys knew or you think that Biden is declining, why were you voting for his policies? Oh, and better question is, who's creating these policies? Because it's evident after watching that debate performance, it's not Joe Biden creating these policies. So who is it? That's what Congress should be trying to get to the bottom of right now. Who is making the key decisions in the Oval Office during the Afghanistan withdrawal, during the Ukraine crisis? Who just authorized American missiles to be shot from Ukraine into Russia, putting us closer to World War III than we've been since the Cuban Missile Crisis? Because it's clear it wasn't the guy that was on that debate stage, and he's the person that ostensibly the American people elected to be the commander-in-chief. So we can't let the Democrats skate with this theater. I don't think it matters who they put forward. We've got to hold them accountable for the damage they've done to the country. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that they're, again, Tim Burchett, who we had on last night, was saying we just can't get complacent, because it's not just about the presidency. It's about the down ticket races and having a Senate, House, and also, I would argue, state level offices that are willing to They want to pursue policies that are really for the American people. And I think some of the downside of constantly being in a news cycle that's like, what's going on with Biden? Is he dropping out? Is that there are lots of things happening that we are not paying attention to. That being said, it is fascinating to see how many people are starting to feel comfortable enough to say, like, oh, no, he's not the same. I mean, George Clooney just penned an op-ed where he was like, the man who was at the fundraiser I was at 3 weeks ago is not the same one as 2020. Sir, why did you not say something 3 weeks ago? Like,
right, exactly.
Where have you been this whole time, except for the fact that you obviously have some kind of clout as a Democratic fundraiser?
Yeah, I think the not getting complacent is key, because Republicans, we did this in 2022. We said, oh, it's going to be a big red wave. Things are trending so badly in the country. People make a different decision. Look, the Democrats know how to do very, very tricky things when it comes to getting enough ballots across the finish line. That doesn't mean they won the argument politically. That means execution-wise, their machinery was able to get ballots across the finish line to get them to the top of the ticket. And so I I fear they're doing that right now behind the scenes. We know they already are, and Republicans are going to get complacent and think, well, this is in the bag. There's no way that Trump and the Republicans lose. So stay focused.
I got bad news for everybody. David Joyce is in a safe Republican district. He had no reason to block the subpoena of Merrick Garland. In the past 2 elections, it's been 2-1, Republican and Democrat in his district. He is in a safe Republican district, so he just sold out for no reason. He just burned it all down for no reason.
That's why I think you should have a statement ready to go. If you're going to vote against something like this, you should be like, here is my reasoning. I may not agree with it, but you should be prepared to publicly say, this is the decision I made, before someone has to say, you know, send a reporter or someone in your office to say, why did you vote that way? Again, maybe there's a statement out I haven't seen. I checked everyone's X account. Maybe they have something on their website, but typically X is the fastest way to get statements out, and I didn't see anything.
Force them to read the bill. Because if you can't make a statement, I mean, it'd be challenging to make a statement on something you didn't read. That's like me in college in lit class. I somehow got through the class, but I didn't run for office.
I mean, they should read the bills they're voting on. But in this case, you know, if you know the gist of the bill and you're like, well, I'm voting against it, you know, I don't want to hold Merrick Garland responsible for anything. Then
same deal for Turner. Turner won the 2022 midterm 61-38. Same margin as Joyce. These guys are in safe districts. They just burnt it down because they hate you, because they are scumbags. Pieces of trash.
I want to know the rest of their voting record, too. I mean, I don't know anything about them, so it's hard to say, like, what else or why they would be appealing. But again, like, if this is the only way I'm learning about you on sort of a national stage, I really wish that you had posted a statement, because I think we should know.
Is it like a
standard procedure?
Is it a single bill, like a single topic bill?
It was a resolution.
Just one.
And it was unilateral authority of Congress, meaning it didn't have to go to the Senate or anything. Yeah. It was literally just, he has defied Congress. Congress will now fine him money until he complies. And it was for information that could potentially be damaging to Joe Biden, which everyone seems to want. This makes literally no sense. These guys, I'm willing to bet, sabotaged this because Johnson was like, don't let it pass.
Did Johnson vote against it too?
He was against it from the get-go and was like, look, I'll vote on it if it comes up, but I don't know why we're even doing it. Like, Biden's doing bad enough by himself. And the sentiment was typically reported as that if Biden's in this scandal already, we don't need to make Garland the boogeyman. And if Republicans want to go to Congress and play politics instead of upholding the law, it's exactly why they suck and why everybody... It's why people don't like them.
Yeah, it sounds like they got some bureaucrats that are in safe districts assuming they're going to get reelected because their constituents are heavily in the...
Because if they did it in a soft red, then the populist base would say, later, we're not voting for you, and then the Democrat would win. But you get a couple guys in safe red, they can betray the voter base, they can betray the rule of law in this country, and they'll probably end up winning anyway.
That's sort of because the bureaucracy is tangled with these dudes financially, and they don't want to disrupt the power structure yet. They're waiting till like they can do like a swap, like an Indiana Jones style. They need the idol before they can take the sack of gold, or they need this bag of sand. So like they're like, no, it'll destabilize things too much if we put this through. If we lose our Merrick Garland goes to jail, that's unprecedented. We can't allow that kind of disruption.
Mike Johnson went into the what did he go? He went into the skiff, or where did he go with the deep state? He got the briefing, and he comes out and he's like, you know, I used to agree with my colleagues on the issues and the excesses of the FBI, but, you know, once they brought me in the back room, I kind of understood where they were coming from, and now I'm on their side. And it's like, what did they smack you up with a sock full of oranges or something?
That was confusing to me. Massey said he was in the skiff with them, and Johnson basically lied. That whole story was a make-up lie. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think Johnson will get reelected as Speaker?
I don't know.
Do you have an opinion?
It's hard to say.
I know you're not there day to day.
If you look at how challenging it was for McCarthy to get elected, 20 plus votes or so, I think it's going to be a fight because, look, I mean, I know some Republicans don't like this, but Republicans aren't afraid to have their own internal wars out in public and say, hey, I don't support leadership. I'm going to go against this. That can be frustrating to some people sometimes. I think it's a good thing because we're actually saying, hey, we are elected to represent people back in our districts, and we're going to be accountable to them regardless of what our party says. So I think it's key that we take a strong majority and we have a good, strong strong majority of people that are on the new right, populist right, whatever you want to call it, that are actually going to wield power properly and stand up to whether it's Merrick Garland or standing up to the guys in the SCIF. I mean, I worked in SCIF for most of my military career and some time in the CIA, and it's like the people that they send to the Hill to give briefings, they're not just analysts that are giving briefings. Those guys are ops officers. They're trained at handling people. They're trained at pushing an agenda, and they have an agenda that they're pushing. And we need to understand that going into it. And Congress's entire job is to hold them accountable. Otherwise, no one else will. And so I that's very dangerous when you have people that are just going to listen to whatever's put out in the SCIF.
Yeah, I'm a bit demoralized after this. I'm not sure how I feel or what's going to get me over that hill again. But if two deep red Republicans are going to take a dump on the floor of the House, it's going to take a lot to get me back on track to actually want to vote for any of these guys. Look, like I said, what am I going to do? We got Riley Moore and we got Trump. Those are our options here. The Senate race, I don't know if I care about West Virginia Senate race. I'm probably going to abstain. I don't give a crap. But of course I'm voting for Riley Moore. In fact, I don't even need to. He won. You know, he won the primaries in deep red, and I'm hoping he can do some good. But in terms of the sentiment, wow. The party is weak, ineffective, spineless, jellyfish losers. They are out of touch with the country. They don't know how to lead effectively. The leadership is a bunch of crackpot tyrannical morons like McCarthy, and now Johnson's taking a dump all over the floor. These people are trash. So I'm just like, I mean, look, I know Riley, so I know at least we're good here, but that's not confidence building for what anyone else is supposed to think. It's a tee-up. It's Congress's authority to do this. It is equality under the law. And they said no. So I'm over it.
I guess I can see why it's discouraging, but I feel like it makes me want to be more careful and pay more attention to who I'm voting for. Because I think, again, you have to really know who you're sending. And especially if, I don't know anything about these Republicans, so it's hard for me to comment on their career or their record or anything like that. But hypothetically, if you have a Republican or Democrat who's in a district that knows they're going to get reelected, they've been in office forever, it would be easy for the voters and for the candidate to become complacent, to take that for granted. And it would mean that you have to stay more on top of what they're doing. I think so often we get sort of, we're so angry with the federal government, and then we should be, but we have the option to try and change it. It's so easy to be like, well, I forgot you guys, I'm not going to do anything. But then it continues on. Like, you have to sort of be active to be a part of it. We
have to make sure that these guys in Ohio, and the guys in California too, I guess, but it's California, so what can you expect from California? But Ohio, safe red districts, they need to pay a very serious political price. What they have done is one of the most infuriating things, one of the most egregious violations that that I've seen in a long time. I've seen a lot of stuff. Adam Schiff, what a scumbag. But these guys, you know, there's a reason why the lowest level of hell is reserved for traitors and the disloyal. Because Adam Schiff's a scumbag, but he tells you, you know
where he stands.
Right. As long as you do your research, you watch the news, you know the man is evil and he's lying to you. But these guys are supposed to represent the rule of law and the opportunity for us to vote in a new group of representatives who are going to actually uphold the law. And like I said, you want to argue Bannon should be in prison? Fine. That means Merrick Garland should be as well. But they do not uphold the rule of law. So whatever that political price must be, I am sick of the political gamesmanship. Yeah. Whatever the argument is where, you know, you mentioned in the SAVE Act, these Democrats try to block the SAVE Act, but as soon as it hits the floor, they get permission to vote in favor of it so they can go back to their districts. This must stop. Yeah. The lies, the manipulation. So whatever the deal was, Johnson going to these guys and saying, just vote to block it. It'll die, and you're going to face no consequences. You will face consequences. We are going to make you pay a political price. I am going to put up billboards in these districts, and I'm thinking maybe it just says, you know, they're corrupt. That's it. That's all it says. They support corruption, corrupt individuals. I'll see how much money I can sink into this, and maybe maybe other people will as well. Maybe I make some phone calls and ask some people if they agree. We should just put up and just call them corrupt. They're not going to lose their elections, but maybe the guy selling hot dogs on the street corner will tell them to F off and want some hot dog.
Or say that they don't want people to have IDs in order to vote. In Ohio, that will swing
That wasn't
hard.
The vote.
Oh.
This was not holding Garland in contempt for defying congressional authority.
Maybe they should just come on Culture War and explain themselves. I mean, I think that's one of the interesting things about this platform is that you could talk to them directly about it in a way that a lot of people who are as frustrated as you are would want to hear.
They're not going to do that.
I mean,
these guys don't even post on X.
Ask. But we don't know until we ask. Sure. What if they do? A lot of people I mean,
they don't even post on X.
They're active on X. They just haven't really stayed on
not in months.
No,
I looked up their accounts. They barely ever post.
Their rep accounts are active. They were both promoting bills.
Right, where they have a staffer doing it for them.
Call a staffer, book them in, have them come sit in. I mean, that's what's interesting, right? Like, we are in a position where, and we being people who are on the internet, who are interested in the internet, they're able to sort of find information in ways that traditionally you had to just go through the press secretary. You had to wait and to see if Fox News had them on. And for a lot of congressmen, I hate to say it, but they're just not high enough profile to necessarily get an automatic call from a major outlet. But this is a different era. You have a lot of journalists that would take interviews with people about issues like this when maybe they wouldn't in the past.
I do think you got to take a look at how your representatives vote. You have to actually do the hard work of digging through the congressional record, which is challenging. I mean, even if you follow it every day, it's hard to find who voted on what. The resolutions are a little bit more clear cut. You got to look at who's funding them. That's another big thing too. It's publicly available, but you have to dig for it as well. How their individual accounts, their individual re-election or election campaigns are funded, the PACs that support them, because that's going to tell you a lot about how they're going to vote or how they do vote. I also think it says a lot when these people are very, very buttoned up and they only speak through press releases, or they'll only go on Fox or CNN for a canned 30-second hit where they know automatically what the questions are going to be. The people that won't do in-person town halls where they answer any question from anybody, like my opponent, when she does a town hall in the district, you have to submit the question to the staffer ahead of time. It's pre-screened, and she communicates through press releases. And the candidates and the politicians who won't come on podcasts. There's so many podcasts out there right now. It doesn't even have to be a big one. I try to not say no to a podcast because there's so much sound bitiness out there. When you get a chance to actually explain things and just have discussions with people, I think if you're asking to represent the district, or even bigger than that, a state or the rest of the country, you should be open to long form discussions to show people exactly who you are and how you think.
I think people are scared of long form discussions.
Oh, they are.
Don't think that they can handle it. And I mean, you should talk about this because you have really been active online, but I think it's not as intimidating a platform once you kind of get into it, unless I guess you're really trying to hide something.
If you're confident in what you believe in, then it's good. I view it as a good thing. A lot of political consultants will say you should never go on a podcast right now. And I'm sure a lot of political consultants in DC would point out like 10 things I've probably done wrong tonight. But I think that's an old arcane way of thinking. I think the younger voter base, and then just the way that the country's consuming media now, they want to see that. I think there's a reason why Tim's done so well, why Joe Rogan has done so well. I think we're social creatures, and I think people are really craving the interaction that you get from podcasts, where you can actually get to know somebody and how they think and where they stand. And so I think people who avoid those platforms, I feel like that silence is becoming more and more deafening.
Yeah.
It indicates that they're afraid, in that either they have secrets and they don't want them to slip out, or that they've done some horrible things, and maybe those would be secrets that they want to keep. Yeah. But when you're free and open, man, it's the easiest thing in the world is to sit and talk to people.
Yeah, for sure.
That's from my experience anyway.
And it's interesting because you could be selective about it too. Like you could still want the Fox interview, the 5 minutes on whoever show, but there are lots of local podcasts. Like I'm sure in whatever state any politician is in, there is someone who has a local podcast that is specifically interested in the political happenings of their state. Yeah. And potentially, like, your congressman coming on that podcast would really assist them and also give you access more directly to your constituents in a way that being on Fox News doesn't really. There's sort of another step in between national TV and local TV now, because you have these internet-based platforms that can be either national or local.
International. It's global. This is technology. Like, if you're a musical artist, you put your stuff on the internet, the entire world sees it. Yeah. Like, you're a politician, the entire world knows who you are now.
I get a lot of young people now at my events that will come up and they've just got their phone and they're like, hey, I have a podcast that has 50 followers or whatever. And, I try not to say no, because I appreciate the opportunity to reach people that I normally wouldn't reach otherwise. And I think it's awesome. So I don't say no to most podcasts.
Let's jump to this story from the Post Millennial. Pew poll finds young Americans are flocking to the Republican Party. 47% of respondents to the poll, Newsweek reports, were either Republican or leaned in that direction. And that's the important distinction here. Leaned in that direction, because I assure you, Many of them probably don't know what party they are, but their politics align more so in this direction, which is why it's very important that we get rid of the rhinos and bring in people who actually will inspire these young people leaning in this direction so we can win.
And personality. You got someone like Donald Trump who, like, up against Barack Obama, he probably looks like a crass old man, but up against Joe Biden, he looks like a young, spry, hilarious comedian. So, like, they're leaning kids that are like 16, 15, that are just looking for the coolest dude. They're going to lean towards Trump if Biden's the other option. So the Democrats really have got to put their pedal to the metal and get a charismatic candidate in front of the camera immediately, or they're going to lose the entire youth base.
And so they don't have to do that, right? Like, it's okay if they don't have a charismatic candidate and they use the loop, like, let it go. No,
I want to play a video for you so you can understand why young people are flocking to towards Donald Trump. Please take a listen.
That's supposed to be a little bit Democrat territory, but we're leading in Nevada, and a waitress came over, beautiful waitress, and I never like talking about physical. She's beautiful inside, because you never talk about a person's look, ever. You never mention it. The other day, I got very angry. Some man called Chris Christie fat, and I said, sir, and then he said he was a pig. I said, sir, Chris Christie is not a fat pig. Please remember that. He is not a fat pig. Please take it back. And the guy's looking at me like, really? No, we have to defend people. You can't call people fat. So I said about 9 times, he is not a fat pig. That's supposed to be a little bit different.
They used to do that.
Look, I'm sorry. Some, like, young kid is watching that and he's laughing his ass off.
Yeah, we would do that joke. It came out when we were like 16 or 17. We figured out you could go, I'm not saying you are an idiot. That's not what I'm saying, is that you are a freaking idiot, dude. I'm not saying that. So he's kind of, it's an alteration of that joke.
Because we don't say physical. She's beautiful on the inside. Oh, come on.
He's a fat pig.
We've all heard the stories of Trump, you know, and the rumors where it's like, you know, he hires these beautiful women for these jobs and, like, in his office, you know, or whatever. And then, you know why he's doing it, right? See, he's not saying that privately. You know what he means when he says that. And when he says, you can't call Chris Christie a fat pig, he just wants to yell, fat pig, Chris, you know what I mean?
It's really funny. I mean, I would actually love to see an Obama-Trump face-off, because Obama has the charisma in the sense that he's, like, cool, I guess. But Trump is very witty. I mean, it is actually funny watching him kind of, like, go back and forth with someone. So it would be a great face-off. Not the same for Biden. Biden doesn't have those skills.
No. There's nothing better than Trump off the teleprompter, I think. Mm-hmm. Just Trump up there freestyling for an hour or so is pretty awesome.
Do you think charisma for young people versus older people is different? And then also for Democrats and Republicans? Like, when you say someone is charismatic or charming, are you looking for different things?
I think there's definitely a different way that the two sides communicate. I think that Trump has really tapped into something that he's very funny. He's very witty. I mean, not everybody's going to be, you know, at the personality that he is, but he's authentic. Like, you know where Trump stands, like, you know what he's saying without him even saying it. But I think that authenticity on the Republican side, and in particular with younger voters who feel like they've been betrayed by, like, the ruling class that's talking heads on TV, like we were just talking about, I think they immediately bite on the authenticity. I mean, somebody reading off a teleprompter in a suit, to them, I think, regardless of what you're saying, is going to be a major turnoff. But if you're up there and you're just talking, you're presenting who you are, I think you're going to be much more appealing to that younger demographic. I do think the Democrats kind of communicate in a lot of just kind of, you know, grievances. They're kind of guilting you into voting. If you're not voting for them, you're a bad person. You're not compassionate. You might be racist.
There was this great CNN segment where Jake Tapper was just annihilating Joe Biden. He's talking about the gaffes, and it was funny to have him actually state verbatim a Biden quote, because it's garbled nonsense. And it was something like, you know, it was the issue that the work, I was my age, that not the issue. And, like, Tapper reads it like that.
I'd love to watch that clip. That was
cool. And I'll pull it up a second. It's funny, but Tapper's reading a prompter. He's reading a teleprompter, and you can tell he's reading a prompter, and it's just like, this is the thing. Like, young people can see that you are not a real human being saying things to them.
Yeah, they'd rather a guy says the wrong thing and then is like, oh, that was wrong. Sorry, I said the wrong thing there. Yeah, and then continue on.
100%.
I think Tapper, maybe in that same segment, referred to these elites in the Democratic Party that have had it with Biden.
Yep.
Flat out, in your face, saying there are elites now. It's like in the Romes, they had the plebs, which were the common man, and then they had the autocrats or the authorities. And now they're like just telling you, yeah, there are people that they consider themselves elites, that they are better than you, and that they run the show and decide. It's pretty stark that it's right in your face. But this word elite's been getting thrown around for like 20 or 30 years. It's become normalized now. And it's like, bro, they're not elite. Elite means that you're good at what you do. It doesn't mean that you're born with money. It doesn't mean that you have connections.
I think it can, though, right? It can refer to people who have access to things that you don't, either because of financial resources or because of social power. I mean, the argument that someone is elite could be skill-based, or it could just actually be a way to reference them socially. I think you're right that there is an interesting pivot from someone like Jon Stewart being like, the elites, as I sit on my national television show, right? Like, it's always someone else, and it's always someone from the outside saying, you know, they're the elite. And I think that was the interesting difference with Trump. I think there was a level of him being like, yeah, of course I'm elite. I'm a billionaire. But people are abusing the rest of you. And I think I'm going to say something. I know Dave Chappelle has a bit on that where he's like, he came from inside the house, told us what was going on, then went back into the house.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think Trump also, there's definitely that honesty factor where he's just like, yeah, you guys know who I am. I'm a billionaire, but I'm telling you, the rest of these guys are screwing you over. But I think Trump also harkens back to our old elites who actually built this country. Like you talked about the founding fathers. Those guys in their time, they were the elites. They were the ruling class, but they felt that they had an obligation to the people of the country, and they felt that their names were directly tied to the country. I personally think that that's how Trump views this as well, because he could have just retired to his golf course, never come back, been a billionaire, but he views his success as being deeply intertwined with America's success. And that's the way our old elites, our old ruling class really used to view their duty to the country. And that went way off the rails, probably since the end of World War II, or maybe even the establishment of the Federal Reserve, like you talked about. And our elites started basically just, you know, really only looking out for themselves, looting the coffers, abusing their power. And Trump's one of the first guys who came from the inside and said, hey, this is wrong and we've got to stop it. And I'll be the instrument to stop it.
There was like, the people that are elite are not actually elite. A lot of them are not. Like Ben Franklin was an elite human being, regardless of his social status. He discovered electricity. Yeah. George Washington, or let's just go with Thomas Jefferson. I don't know actually a lot about George Washington's personal life, but Thomas Jefferson could play music. He was a writer.
George Washington, married to Martha, wanted to go back to Mount Vernon. Is that him?
Yep.
Wooden teeth. He was like 6'6" and this brilliant charismatic warrior. No, so he was like an elite commander.
Known for his leadership skills, and he was working from a really young age, surveying a lot of the country. I mean, he's an interesting person.
So like the people in the elite positions were actually elite humans. But now we've got people in elite positions like Joe Biden. That guy has elevated himself to that level career-wise. And it's like, whoa, how? Yeah, why was he even on stage with Obama in 2008? It was like a pity. I thought he was like a pity party guy. Like, let's just put this old.
It's because Democrats won't outright vote for a black man. But I'm not exaggerating. The political strategy, which was widely acknowledged at the time, was that Barack Obama, as a black man, needed an old white man to convince a lot of the older Democrats to vote Democrat.
Joe Biden was like, you won't believe how old I am. I can do this.
That's right.
I'm old. I'm white. I'm here.
They said Barack will do better with skewing younger, but older Democrats won't vote for a black man. So you need Joe Biden to be that face of the traditional America, white old president. They do say that with Kamala Harris, it's a similar strategy. Joe Biden is what they're pitching towards Democrats, and then they're hoping the progressive younger people will go for, Kamala Harris.
I think you see this with Republicans too, and they were like, Trump must have a female VP. It's like, no, he does not need a female VP. I mean, if there's a lady VP who's good and for some actual tangible reason other than the fact that she has a uterus, then fine. But there is this identity politics that comes into it. They're like, to balance out the rest of the ticket, we have to cover up for whatever fault you have, whatever. Like if you're Joe Biden and you're old and white, then we need someone who is female and diverse and maybe younger. Although
trick people into voting. If we had actual elite people in power, people that were of elite minds, I think that would send shockwaves of fear through the imperial strategists that are trying to control the country through bureaucracy, that with this federal spy club that they've got.
Have you ever, do you know what Myers-Briggs personality tests are? They have the letters, the INTJ or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but I'll look it up. There's a study done that there's a certain personality type that congregates in DC, and it's the same personality type that it's very uncommon, and it's what Hillary Clinton is. I think it's INTJ. I'll double check in a second.
Let's find out.
But like whether it's elite in terms of like skill or IQ or something like that, maybe. But also, I think some of those people wouldn't want to go into politics. They would be like, I've got something better
Right.
to do or something. I mean, like Elon Musk is making no plans to run for governor of California as far as I can tell. And he's, I would consider him a pretty elite person in terms of skill.
Yeah, he is elite.
Look.
But your hands get bound when you get into the political system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Trump. God, look what happened to that guy. Got dragged through the coals. Who I was thinking of, Schwarzenegger, who an elite human being across the board. I don't know about obviously he's a brilliant, smart guy, but is super, super famous.
A brilliant smart guy.
A brilliant smart
Not
guy.
just like a brilliant dumb guy.
Well, I was just assuming he was smart because he was governor, but that doesn't, you don't have to be smart to be governor. So maybe he's of average intellect. I really don't know much about Arnold's smarts. He's never like wowed me with his math theorems or anything, but very charismatic, hardworking, devoted, elite man.
I want to play this clip. CNN's Jake Tapper taking down Joe Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to love this one.
In reality, 72% of voters say that they believe President Biden is too old. That's according to CNN's most recent polling. Voters have been saying this for quite a long time. The reality is that the Democratic elites are mostly late to acknowledge these age and ability issues compared.
I want to pause real quick. Did you notice he's reading a prompter? Yeah. When he makes those weird pauses, it's because the prompter isn't moving fast enough. So you'll see this a lot with cable presenters when they do weird things like exaggerating the way they're talking for no reason. But now I'll play the rest, just so you get that
the
point.
rest of the public. The elites have been forced to reckon with it after the debate just 11 days ago.
Look at my career. I've not had many of those nights. It was a terrible night, and I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on faith.can intervene on your way to go to, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea I'm too old.
The fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be out on your way to go, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea that I'm too old. Keep in mind, that soundbite is supposed to be reassuring to those Democratic supporters who have gone wobbly.
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
He doesn't think he did. He called into a couple of black radio stations where he said, among other things, this.
By the way, I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman, served with a black president. I'm proud of the role of the first black woman in the Supreme Court. There's just so much that we can do because together there's nothing. Look, this is the United States of America.
He's proud to be the first black woman? Not coherent. And even then, we later found out, from the radio host, that the Biden campaign had given her a list of questions to ask President Biden. That is a huge no-no in journalism, and the host was fired for it. But it remains quite telling that in the Biden campaign's efforts to show that the president has not missed a step, his campaign felt the need to feed questions to the hosts for a call-in radio interview. And the president still, even then, failed to deliver in many of his answers. Now, many elected Democrats are expressing concern about this answer, too, although it was quite coherent. George Stephanopoulos asking him how he would feel if he ultimately loses to Donald Trump, which polls have suggested he will.
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the goodest job as I know I can do. That's what this is about.
As long as he gave it his all and did the goodest job he could do. That's what it's all about. Is it?
Apparently it is. When CNN runs through segments that are old. Okay, so wasn't the first black woman comment from before? Was it from before the debate?
No, it was after.
It was after the debate.
This was part of his recovery.
Okay.
Amazingly enough.
Well, where is Jake Tapper to go through, I don't know, all of the cheap fakes they accused us of posting, all of these videos? It's only now that CNN is hopping on board with this? I'll take it, I guess, but still.
I mean, Jake Tapper's fake outrage that he has there. It's hey, man, where was the outrage when 13 American soldiers got killed during the Afghan withdrawal, when 3 more got killed defending the border of Iraq, Syria, in Jordan under this commander-in-chief, when we decided that we were going to get us into essentially World War III with this disastrous policy in Ukraine? I mean, the things that a commander-in-chief should be held accountable for, it's like crickets, but then all of a sudden he has a bad debate and he stutters through some things and says some goofy stuff. Now the Democrats are super outraged, and now Jake Tapper's really ready to hold them accountable. It's all just so fake. It's disgusting.
Right. Was Tapper even outraged when Joe Biden said, no American soldiers have died on my watch?
Exactly.
Right. That was even closer.
Yeah.
I mean, the other fascinating thing to me here is that Biden can't get any questions that were teed up to him correctly. And it's gotten so bad that George Stephanopoulos, who did the post-debate interview, I don't know if you guys saw this, but TMZ had this article. Someone stopped him on the street and was like, do you think Biden should run again? And George Stephanopoulos was like, no. And then later had to be like, oh, I shouldn't have talked about it publicly. But you just sat down with this guy and you said that he can't do this. I mean, it's all falling apart, but it's not new information. No. I mean, the debate was bad, but it was already evidence that was out there. It wasn't like, I mean, I know some people will argue Joe Biden's gotten really bad in the last 6 months, but he was always seeming to have some kind of cognitive, verbal issue. I mean, the gaffes were run of the mill. It would happen all the time. And
a lifelong stutter.
A lifelong stutter. I'm so sorry I criticized that. How could I?
You know what the Afghanistan surrender and the lack of outrage, the rout that commenced as a result of that rapid surrender and attempted pullout, had it been like 700 American soldiers got killed, would there be outrage? If it was like...
There was outrage that 13 did.
Some outrage, but not really outrage. There was some mumbling and grumbling and like, where is...
Oh, well,
Jake
Democrats
Tapper
don't care.
Yeah.
What if there was 6,000 men slaughtered, American men taken hostage? What if there are beheadings, American soldiers beheaded on camera? Then would there be outrage? Like, what does it take? How much death does it take to get people to wake up?
Is that if that were to happen, the progressive left would be celebrating in the streets. And the Democrats would have to contend with, do we put out a message that will cost us those votes? I am not exaggerating. When Hamas launched the attack on October 7th, we saw protesters in Times Square celebrating, and Democrats didn't know which direction to go with it. Do we sacrifice the little youth vote we have, or how do older people? They didn't know, because they're trying not to alienate voters.
And I mean, up to that point, we had lost nearly 3,000 Americans in Afghanistan. We lost another 5,000 in Iraq, and people barely bat an eye because you had regime media like CNN, who benefits heavily from the established order and the ruling class in Washington, D.C., running cover for the entire nonsense up until Trump comes into office and Trump says, I want to end these wars. The next thing you know, Trump is colluding with the Russians who are putting bounties on the heads of American soldiers, completely made up. They made the entire thing up and admitted it later on. But that's the way these people, like CNN, will run cover for the worst abuses of the U.S. government, especially with Democrats in control or establishment Republicans, the military-industrial complex, basically just the establishment in Washington, D.C. These guys are completely disingenuous. Luckily, I think CNN is dying because they've just been lying for so long. And the same thing with most mainstream media.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
Tapper's
that
like,
was
clear.
That was
clear.
another.
He's trying to bring it back.
That was another big story that we didn't have enough time to get into, but we'll round off the segment with CNN's laying tons of people off. Their ratings are in the gutter.
Real shame.
Yeah. Hey, they chose this.
Yeah.
Zucker came in and said, let's take the CNN brand of news and turn it into reality TV garbage that hates Donald Trump and alienate half the country. His pitch was basically, we're losing ratings anyway. Let's isolate a market and capture it. And they went for resistance, far left lunatics. And now they have one of the highest demographics in terms of their average viewer. And nobody wants to watch because they're not a news network anymore.
Do you think their ratings would have been better if Trump had served the second term, like gotten into the White House in 2020? Because in some ways it would give them more to be mad about. I mean, that's almost one of the things that I wonder about, that they have lost ratings under Biden.
Well, that's true. I mean, their ratings were way up under Trump. Yeah. But the issue is that we're at a point now where young people are moving towards Trump for a variety of reasons. The economy's bad. Biden screwed things up. And now people are sick of it. Yeah. So while they certainly could retain, if Trump was president, they'd blame him for everything. And so they maintain that audience. Now they're screwed. Because Biden got in, that's what they begged for, burned everything down. Inflation is through the roof. Costs are through the roof. And and this is the anti-Trump network. Yeah. Who's now going to tune in and be like, let me hear it. No, there's no Trump anymore. Mm-hmm. And the people who are watching because hated Trump left. And now they're going to try and come back and be like, but Biden's bad. And people are going to be like, I don't watch this.
And they got caught lying so many times. I mean, COVID, they just got caught lying through their teeth, and they haven't even made amends for it.
The Joe Rogan clip,
exactly right.
where he looked sickly, like they desaturated whatever. I don't know what they did.
Yeah,
but they were accused of like making him look green.
They doctored the photo for sure.
Ivermectin or whatever.
There's a video of him saying that he was getting prescribed this, and they made him look sickly. And then when he had on, what do you have, like Fareed Zakaria, and he called him out, and he's like, "Oh yeah." So CNN doesn't deserve to ever come back.
I think
that's
that
it.
Using the word rating is kind of it's a psyop, because when you give something, when you rate something, you're like, oh, how good is that? I'd give that a 10 out of 10. It's awesome. Not about how many people see the thing. There could be 100 million people watch the show and all give it a 1 out of 10 because they rate it a terrible.
People are hate watching CNN.
Yeah, exactly. They have high ratings because a lot of people watch, but they're actually rated very poorly because the people can't stand watching it and they're afraid when they're watching. They don't come out of it with a good feeling.
The challenge is that CNN may die, but MSNBC lives on, right? I mean, there are more mainstream progressive or left-leaning news outlets than there are conservative or, God forbid, we just have a centrist news platform that just gives information of the same size that bring in the same revenue and stuff like that. And I do think ultimately there can never be an exact competition because the internet has become so prevalent and the alternative. I mean, I don't want to say alternative, like podcasting is such a normal thing, or, having a YouTube-based show or having Rumble or whatever else. Like these alternative ways of getting news out there are making it so that CNN, MSNBC, Fox News all have to compete with that. They all have started cultivating YouTube channels and putting out clips so that they can get the viewership that's never going to be on the TV. They don't even have cable subscriptions.
CNN 8 years ago should have started shows like this.
Yeah.
And they should have said, we put the money in it, we see where it goes.
I actually think, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's this Mockingbird media out things where the CIA started this Operation Mockingbird where they wanted to manipulate the public through control the mass media. Vietnam, there was a lot of outrage during Vietnam with the caskets coming back, the American bodies. It was like, enough. We embedded journalists. We saw how horrible it was and we stopped it as a society. And they were like, we can't let that happen again. Whoever, this imperial strategist, the Imperial Five Eyes spy club controls the Mockingbird media. They were like, we got to take control of this media. And now what's happening is the media is competing with its own suffering. You can't, it's not that like Rogan's so good, let's be like that. It's like we are just, now it has become apparent how awful we are as a structure, and holes are appearing within their system and you're just spurting out the lifeblood of what they needed.
Well, let me try and simplify this. The people who used to run the deep state had kids. Those kids didn't start the deep state, the liberal economic order, but they did see their parents maintain it. So they kind of understood how to maintain it. Then they had kids, and those kids saw their parents maintaining a thing but never building it, and they don't exactly know the intricacies. So we're in the third generation of the liberal economic order, and holes have begun to appear. And like the cartoon where the guy's trying to plug the holes in the ship, they don't know how to make it stop collapsing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the liberal economic order is crumbling.
They call it the apocalypse, at least in the Bible, this great awakening, this unveiling.
It means revelation.
It means to take away the blinder or something. I think apo means to take away, and calypse is like a veil, means the veil, so to remove the veil. Ooh. Yeah, DMT, talk about seeing through the veil and stuff. Like
we're gonna go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? 1 like equals 1 hashtag free Bannon. I am really pissed off the Garland thing because Bannon's in prison right now and he shouldn't be. Yep. Or at the very least, Garland should be. But head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to watch that members-only uncensored call-in show where you as members will actually join us, and we hope to see you there. It's also, as a member, you are supporting the show, making it all possible. I'm going to reach out to my agent and my lawyer to take a look at what kind of billboards we can run in these districts. And I thought about it, and I'm thinking something like Mike Turner does not support law enforcement. I think that would be a good one, maybe for both of them, because they will not support the enforcement of the law and how they tried to uphold it, equality under the law. Let him deal with it. I don't know what it means or what it'll do, but it'll sure feel good to say, right? Other than that, become a member to support our work if you like what we do, and I will read your super chats. CT Hampy says, I live in a small town near Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My dad and kids in town are raising donations to update our town's small skate park for the first time in 20 years. GoFundMe Hartford skate park expansion. Best of luck, sir. We've got some news here on our front. I talked with the city of Martinsburg about the skate park expansion project, and they have not yet secured land. But should they, and they're going to begin fundraising, we have already made our pledge to them, 6 figures to help support this skate park expansion in the area. I told the guy at the city, we want to make a world-class facility that attracts people from all over the place to come and hang out here if you guys are okay with that. And he said, absolutely. So that's exciting news. And we're going to talk to some big industry partners, see if we can make a big park out here as well. But best of luck to you guys, CT Hampy. All right. Token Black Guy says, howdy, people. If Biden stepped down, wouldn't there be an issue giving away the direct donations he received? I believe the PAC donations could be used for any candidate, but I don't think the direct donations work the same. You are correct. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding, too. I think he could give them to another candidate, or
No.
maybe
I think they can
it's a
only
refund.
stay with the Biden-Harris ticket. So, like, she could get
No. What I heard is that Harris could not take it.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it might depend on like some of the classifications of the donations too.
Yeah.
But the money stopped. That was the latest. You see that? There was a report where it said the money has stopped flowing.
I have gotten so many ads from Joe Biden asking me to give him money, and I really think that he should, at least for me, save your money. I don't think it's going to happen anymore.
I'll donate.
Yeah. Well, we are riding with Biden. I forgot that. Never mind.
We don't want him. We don't want him to leave.
Look, our most authentic president, who's just being himself, no matter who's looking at him.
You can't be a primary election denier.
That's right. Yeah. All right. Hunter's Lab says, I've heard from a detective in Illinois that said every state copier has to report for duty in Chicago during the DNC. They think there will be massive riots and they may try to burn the city. Yes. That's why we are going to the RNC and we will not be at the DNC.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're going to Milwaukee. I'm not worried about that. Cheese and, whatever else.
And there was that protest that like sued to be able to like be inside the safety zone and they got struck down. They're not even going to be able to do that. I mean, I think the RNC is going to be very boring in comparison to the DNC. Not that it won't be a great time.
A big Trump rally. The other side's going to be chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In 2016 at the conventions, we all thought the RNC was going to be a massive protest. And it wasn't. With Trump, we were like, it's going to get crazy. And then it didn't. I think it was, where was that? Was that in Cleveland? And then
Ohio for 2016.
Yeah. Where was the DNC? Charlotte?
Let me look.
Because the DNC was nuts. Thousands of people were trying to tear down the barricades. Yeah. They jumped over the walls and started running full speed to the convention. I was like, wow. Because they nuked Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
So.
What is this year the DNC expected to be Biden, Harris? Are they going to go?
Oh, yeah.
And then other candidates that want to.
It's going to be spicy. Yeah.
Yeah, Cleveland, Ohio for the RNC in 2016. I'll look for the Democrat now.
I think it was Charlotte.
I think so too, but
I was fun. I met Zach Braff when I was there.
What about Zach? I
met
love
him.
Scrubs? Oh, man. Scrubs is one of my favorite shows.
Pennsylvania, Philadelphia.
It was in Philadelphia?
From July 25th, July 28th in 2016.
Really?
That's what the internet.
Well, anything's going to be crazy.
What year am I thinking about? Maybe I was in No, wait. Am I thinking of 2012 maybe?
I'll look.
Might be 2012. Yeah, it was Philadelphia, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yes, you are thinking of 2012.
Did you go to the 2012?
It was Charlotte 2012? Ah, you see?
Did you do that one?
Yeah, of course.
And then 2020 was...
That's where I met Zach Braff. It was 2012.
22, and then DNC in 2020 was virtual, which was also hilarious.
I saw him walking down the street, and I was like, Zach, can I get a picture? And he was like, sure. And we took a picture, and then I shook his hand.
So great, man.
Scrubs is amazing. One of the best shows ever.
Groundbreaking. Yeah. John C. Reilly. Wait, no. John McGinley.
Calhoun.
John C. McGinley.
Yeah,
I get those
Calhoun?
two
I don't know
names mixed up.
Are you a Scrubs fan?
No.
John McGinley.
I don't think I saw it.
Great
Never
show.
Saw it? It's a good show, yeah.
They wove music
late 90s, early 2000s.
Donald Faison was in it.
When you're not campaigning or raising your children.
Right. And of course, you all know that I'm a huge fan of Men at Work. So the episode where Colin Hay was playing Overkill on the street playing the guitar, and then periodically the song would kick back up. And I love the scene where he's hiding in the closet, and he just looks at Colin Hay. He's like, just keep it down. And that's when he hits the high point of Overkill and he starts belting. It's a good show. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great song. All right. Raymond G. Maga Stanley Jr. says, Tim, you've been on one today with your videos. I second the calling out of terrible, evil, and useless people no matter what side they claim to fight for. And so this was basically like, I could grab a spicy headline and do a segment monologuing about the news and Joe Biden, this, that, or otherwise. But the Krasensteins, they are evil people. And I did a 25-minute long breakdown of how I define evil, why I think they are evil, what I think evil is. The simple version is that there is entropy and there's negative entropy in the world. Life seems to try to organize things into complex systems, and the destruction of that is anti-life. It opposes the function of life. So for people whose end goal is self-empowerment to the destruction, which would result in more entropy in the destruction of civilization and complex systems, that to me is what evil is. And it can be simplified by the Krasensteins intentionally lie to people, pull things out of context, and misrepresent things to trick people into doing things that hurt them. They've been accused in the past of harming innocent people. They were raided by the feds a long time ago, and they were never accused of any crimes or anything. But these are guys who go on X, and it's just one example, because he tweeted something like, Trump's a convicted felon, and how could we have come to this point, challenging a man to a golf game, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you're evil. Because there's a few things in there that are important pieces of context. One, Biden challenged Trump to a golf game first, a little while ago, then at the debate. Then Trump countered with, okay, I'll challenge you to a golf game for $1 million. And then the Krasensteins are like, oh, how dare you, Trump? Yeah. Wait. Biden did it first. But that's omitted from these people to trick those who are low information or ignorant or not smart enough to fend for themselves so that their resources can be extracted from them and it causes them harm in the long run. If society functions in that way over a long period of time, it will break down and it will die. That is anti-life. It defies what life does. So I believe that properly informing people and giving them information so they can live a functional, better life, a rising tide lifts all ships, and then humans can expand. So he's an evil guy. And I pulled up a post where he explicitly stated his intention was to play this. It's a social engineering manipulation tactic where you state something as an aside so that it becomes an afterthought, not part of the actual argument, so that no argument can be made. So you see this in the media all the time where they say, Donald Trump, comma, a convicted felon, comma, was recently seen buying tickets to a movie theater. And you're like, wait. The convicted felon thing has nothing to do with the story. There's no argument, no context, no information. But they put these things in stories as a way to make sure the idea sticks outside of that argument. So another way to explain it is, if you go to someone and say, did you know Trump is a felon who did a bad thing? They'll ask you, explain yourself.
Right.
What do you mean by that? But if you say, did you know Donald Trump was going to the store to buy a candy bar? And when he went there, someone yelled, you're a convicted felon. And we know he is. But the candy bar was actually $3. Can you believe it was $3? There's no conversation about him being a convicted felon. Yep. You're anchoring. This is what he's doing. This is what these Democrat pundits do. Yep. They omit the context of all of these claims and all of these charges. Harry Sisson does it. They are evil people. If they were to run cleanly through the political system, you'd have Soviet-style collapse in 10 years. The Republican Party being as effective as it is, I think we're much closer to that now than ever. But there's a reason why the Soviet Union only lasted 69 years. There's a reason why Rome lasted, what, like a couple thousand? What was Rome? 1,000-something years?
About 1,000 years.
1,000 years. And then eventually it began to decay, but it was strong early on. The Roman Republic, at least, and then it turns into the empire. The United States has been around for several hundred years, and there's a reason for it. Decentralized meritocratic systems with a light nucleus. Over time, power coalesces, and then eventually you get crackpots who try to extract power and burn the ship down. You look at the end history of Rome, and that's what happens. People begin to just extract for themselves, and it breaks.
My take on Ed and Brian Krasenstein is that I think people are like pallets, and that they can do evil and good, and that if that cycle of evil is replicated, if a human continues it over and over, you might say that person is evil, even though what's more accurate is that person commits evil and has done it 78% of the time. And if the evil acts perpetuate, then we're in dire straits. But those people can be turned and do good also. So I try not to alienate people by putting them in boxes of perception.
Yeah, but after all this time, you know what I mean? It's so the point I'm making is when these guys post Donald Trump is a convicted felon, and I can't believe anyone would consider voting for a convicted felon. How dare he challenge Biden to a golf game? Like, there's so much information missing from that a person would need to be informed upon to actually improve their lives, and they're doing it intentionally. He knows he tweeted he was intentionally doing it. Like a manipulation tactic to just push people. He said, we're going to keep doing this and hammering it over and over again, knowing that the context is completely different, that the Trump never faced due process for any secondary crimes. He knows all of this because he's evil. He's an evil guy. In 2018, the feds raided their home and seized $500,000 in cash because their website was running ads pushing people to Ponzi schemes and downloading viruses, according to the feds, that resulted in their bank accounts being drained. Now, I could play this game too, and I could say, Brian and Ed Krasenstein, the guys who were raided by the feds for fraud and for scamming people and destroying their lives and hurting innocent people, accused Donald Trump of impropriety by challenging Biden to a golf game. But does that really provide you with enough context as to who these guys are and what really happened? They were never charged with crimes. Right. They were never arrested. That's important context I think people should know. The feds made the accusation, but there was never any due process. But how about it? How about we play that game? And in every instance, I say this, tit for tat. Is that the game you want to play, Krasensteins? In any instance you want to play this game, as you stated you will, I will always preface with, you were raided by the feds because you hurt innocent people. Their lives were destroyed, their money was stolen, and it's your fault.
You know, my question is, can you use that manipulation tactic where you're seeding the premise into the question or into the statement where it's inarguable for good? Can you do that for good? Because I think it's just a solid manipulation tactic. I think you can do it for good.
Nope.
If people are in crazy evil state and you like put good things in as a supposition that are unquestionable.
The ends do not justify the means because you never meet the ends. If you decide that lying and manipulating and controlling people is the path towards your dream vision of what society should be, then you are the evil people.
But if you just let the evil go by without trying to manipulate it into good.
I believe that there needs to be some kind of light central nucleus that acts as some kind of restrictive force. But for the most part, you want a widely decentralized meritocratic system. So you look at the United States. A largely decentralized meritocratic system for a long period of time, but power does coalesce over a long period of time. You get the centralization of federal authorities, and it leads to a point where the machine just breaks. So there's a reason why the United States lasted longer than the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was a hyper-centralized machine state that could not function properly. And then it just collapses on itself. It can't work. Communism can't work. Authoritarianism cannot work. They keep trying it over and over again. It doesn't work. However, you look at capitalist systems and the coalescing of power into monopolies and government authority, eventually it will break down. You get revolutions, you get social disorder and collapse. But again, to your point, if you think lying to someone to manipulate their behavior into doing something that you think is good, you're evil.
Yeah, but not lying. If it's just truly what I believe. If it's like, say all these people think that cutting up other humans is the right way to do it. And I'm like, well, as we know that being kind to people is the basis of goodness and what we all want, you should do these things. And then they don't even question that kindness is the basis of what we want.
These are two different points. You said to anchor an idea removed from its context to manipulate them into doing good things. Yeah. That's evil.
But what if the idea is to do kindness?
Because you are asserting your singular worldview over the decentralization of the system. No one human knows what the entirety of humanity needs.
Is it like incrementally it's okay? Once in a while it's okay to do that, but not to do it promiscuously?
I don't think it's ever okay. I think sometimes we naturally may not include all relevant context because we just don't know. That's a natural tendency, sure. But the idea that you would purposefully exclude information to trick someone into thinking the wrong thing, that's evil. You are corrupting the system. You go to a person and you say A plus B equals C. That's the point. That B is very important. It matters for a lot of reasons. And then you get these people who say A equals C. And you're like, okay, that may be a true conclusion at some point. The problem, B was peanuts and they were allergic to peanuts. And so then they're like, you say, in order to get to this place, you need only walk from here to here. And what you don't tell them is that they're walking through quicksand. You omit the context because you think it's better that this person does something that you want them to do without them knowing. No, people need accurate information. This is the point of journalism. It was supposed to be that a well-informed population could run their country very well. And if someone says, I don't want to get, say, my doctor says that I'm high risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome, I should not be required to get this vaccine. Well, these people would lie to you because it's better that the entirety of society, so say I, do this one thing. And then what happens? People get hurt because people need to get sound advice that fits their lives at a singular level. And then you worry about the rest. But we should read more super chats. All right. Jacob Pauly says, Tim and crew, why should conservatives even stand by the law if the left doesn't? Is it just too late? And should we say, screw it, let's play ball? I don't see any resolution here. I'm a classical lib, but I'm just done, man. The Constitution is dead.
Well, I think...
let me just make this really quick and then throw it to you, Ian. Because if you do, they won.
Yeah.
That is what they want you to do.
Yep.
They are hoping the law ceases to exist so that they can recreate it. The moment we stop we stop believing in this system, in the Constitution, is the moment they say, finally, we've gotten their confidence broken. Yeah. That's what I'm worried about with everything they're doing. The point at which people on the right say there is no system. And that's why I'm extremely angry and concerned about these Republicans who did not hold Garland in contempt because they just did it.
That's a big part of what the left wants you to do, too. They want you to say, well, it's all rigged anyway, so I'm not going to vote. Or maybe you're going to, Fed post on the internet, or you're going to go do something stupid. Then they can throw the full weight of the system against you. So don't fall for the psyop. If they already had control and they had already won, all their propaganda wouldn't be necessary.
I see, like, the people in the government have to execute righteous lawfare. That's their purpose. But the private sector is enabled to disobey. It's called civil disobedience. And if the system has gone awry, we have no choice other than to disobey the evil, corrupt system. But that's the independent, that's the private sector does that. Within the government, they're not supposed to do that. They have to remain lawful. They're supposed to.
Well, I'll just break. I think everything we're seeing with Biden and the chaos and Trump and all that, the system is broken. And we are desperately holding the strands together, but it's busted. That's it. Democrats have completely broken it. Mm-hmm. They keep screaming that it's Trump, but I'm telling you, like, anybody who takes 5 minutes to do a Google search realizes, hey, they've been lying the whole time. The easiest way to explain this to your family members when they don't believe you, they're like, no, it's the Republicans who are lying. It's like, who in the family told you that Joe Biden was ill? Mm-hmm. Was it me? And how long ago did I tell you this? And you didn't believe me. And then you watched the debate and you were surprised to learn that the media had lied to you, that Democrats had lied to you, the commercials, all of these things. They were all lying the whole time. And I was the one telling you the truth. Now, do you believe me? Maybe now people might be like, yeah, maybe. What's going on? I don't know. It'll be hard for some people because it's painful to realize that they were on the wrong side, that they were bad guys. But I tell you, you look at what these Democrats are doing, and Joe Biden is the proof. You need not see any, you need not get into great detail. They lied to you the whole time. They are evil. They are lying, and they are shattering this machine. They are breaking this country on purpose. Hopefully Trump wins. Hopefully we can see some remedy. Hopefully these guys in Ohio and California, these Republicans, they face some kind of political penalty at home. Maybe that means they lose donors. I don't know. But we got to right the ship. All right, let's grab some more. Let's grab some more super chats. Next, the Slayer says, I was following Tim on X today. Seems like he woke up and chose violence, LOL. I don't know which tweet you're referring to. Maybe.
You wake up feeling spicy today?
I don't know. I always tweet shenanigans.
I saw you tweet at like 5 in the morning a couple days ago. It's like on a weekend.
No.
Yeah, it was like 5 a.m.
No, I don't think so.
It had to be. Maybe you did it in your sleep. Check the records.
5 a.m. I don't know about that.
Because I was still awake. And I was like, what is he tweeting this early?
Oh, I mean, we were in Vegas.
Oh, there it is.
Right.
Different
so
hours.
It's not. Yeah, it was like 8.
Gotcha.
8 something. Yeah.
I know it was like 2 a.m. your time.
2 a.m.?
1 a.m. or something, yeah.
No, because we went to bed at 10 p.m. in Vegas.
I'll have to review it then.
IDGAF.com says, Tim, if you get any pushback for calling OnlyFans models prostitutes, you're etymologically correct. Pornographe, prostitute writings. Graphes, how do you pronounce it in French? Graph, is also the origin of graphene. There's a joke in there somewhere. What? No way. Is it really? Yeah, graph. Right? Photograph.
I wish I knew everything about graphene, but...
Come on, dude.
What does that mean,
You've got time
graph?
to study up.
What does that word mean?
Probably means something related to visual representation.
Yeah, like a graph is what you draw on in math.
Telegraph, photograph, pornograph. Huh. All right. NYBSFP says Bannon and the other, Navarro, turned themselves in. Maybe they should have ignored the Dems like Garland is ignoring them. I have less pity for them than I would have otherwise. No, it's because the DOJ went after them, and the DOJ did not go after Garland. There was no law enforcement to go and arrest Garland. They wouldn't do it.
Graph apparently is a Greek suffix meaning to scratch, to scrape, to graze. Cool. Not to disrupt the super chat here, but
probably a reference. Is there expanded etymology on that one?
Let me look.
Because I bet it's like you would draw it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how pornography was probably originally drawn art.
Writings. And photograph is photo, light, etching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to write, I mean, you'd be scratching something on.
There's also, it says, any of the possible forms of a grapheme with an M. I don't know what that is.
I keep hearing good things about Ian's Graphene Dream.
Oh, I want to try some. I still
have it.
haven't. Okay, I maybe take a bag if we got some here. It's low acidity.
I think we have a bag.
It's our lowest acidity coffee, so try it. Ian's Graphene Dream. I think it's castbrew.com.
What are the benefits of low acidity coffee?
Well, less like if you ever get stomach nausea, you'll notice less of that. From my anecdotal experience, I can handle a lot more. My throat, it's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Citizen 7 said the same people that called voter ID racist are the same people that wanted all of us to walk around with vaccine passports. Mm-hmm. That's right. And I have questions about why they're requiring vaccines for cold medicine when they know that will disproportionately affect minorities. What are they trying to say about that, huh? Racists. Viperman says, put this toward the billboards targeting the rhinos. Well, again, guys, like I got to call my lawyer first. And so everyone gets all excited and I'm like, I'm going to call my lawyer and there's going to be like, here are the laws limiting what you can do. And it's like, okay, and then maybe we'll do something. But I do think a couple billboards in each district would be cathartic. Mike Williams says, buy a billboard truck that you could reuse whenever you want. That's a good idea. I like the idea of billboards, though, like right in downtown, just big ones. And in Ohio, in these districts, it probably wouldn't be that expensive. You got to find like a high trafficked area. It might be like $3,000 for the month in these smaller areas, we'll see. And then, man, that'll be awkward for him, I guess. Yeah. How do you answer that? Oh, there's this guy. He's mad at me because something. It's like, well, what's going on? What's with this billboard?
And he puts a billboard here outside the skate park.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
No, I'm not.
All right, let's grab some more super chats. We got time for a couple more. All right. The mayor of Seriostown says, has anyone considered that having schools which are notoriously led by leftists who dislike tradition and Christianity, teaching children what the Bible is about, maybe this isn't the best idea? Right. I mean, like you're talking about the jurisdictions where they want prayer or Ten Commandments in schools and things like this. Yeah, I just think we have to realize that we should not live in a world where we hand our children to the state.
Amen.
It's weird, right? Like, how do we get to this point where the kids used to be with the parents at work? And this is the thing, like pre-industrialization, what was life like? Mom and dad wake up. Mom helps the kids a little bit. Dad helps the kids a little bit. Depending on how young the kid is, mom may be nursing. Dad goes and tends to the cattle. Mom goes and tends to the chickens, churns some butter, comes in, washes some laundry. Dad and the son may go out and catch some rodents for stew that night. Everybody was contributing what they could. Kids were there with their parents learning. And there were some schoolhouses at some point, but they were relatively small. A lot of stuff was done in the church. Then industrialization happens, and now your kids are left. Here you go. Go to the state.
Yep.
Now the parents don't see their kids anymore. Their kids are raised by strangers. It's weird.
Yeah, we started homeschooling about a year ago, and it's been awesome. If you can do it, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of different ways you can get into it. But I think pushing school choice at the local level and then maybe even eventually the federal level is the way that we break free from that system.
I'm just anti-school in general. Homeschool all the way, 100%.
Yeah.
Pods, whatever you got to do. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, smash the like button. 1 like equals 1 hashtag free Bannon. And I really do mean it. Steve Bannon. He's a good dude, and I have tremendous respect for him. Fighting the good fight, standing up for what he believes in, and doing the right thing. He's a good guy. He should not be in prison. These people who have locked him up, they're despicable people. So shout out to Bannon. Really excited for when he does get released, and we'll hear what he has to say. But go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, support our work. We need your help as members to make sure the machine keeps turning and keeps running. That's how we make everything operate. That's how we do the show. And we're going to have that members-only call-in show coming up for you in about a minute. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Joe, do you want to shout anything out?
Yep. JoeKentForCongress.com is my website. Anything you can donate to the campaign is going to help me go make a difference in D.C. And then the book about my late wife is called Send Me. You can buy it anywhere that you buy books.
What's the book called?
Send to Me.
Send to Me.
Send Me. Yep.
And you get that anywhere? Okay.
Anywhere you buy books. Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Nobles, all of them.
Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, thank you.
At Ian Crossland, you follow me on the internet if you'd like to. And you just have a great night. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, it's been a fun conversation. I'm so glad you could come back and join us in the new studio.
Yeah.
I'm Hannah Keller-Brimlow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. Follow all of their work at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b, and I'm on Twitter at hannahclaireb. Thanks for everything you guys do. I hope you have a great night.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.